before we get started, once again, welcome back, guys. It's been what 4 weeks? I think it's been about a month since we last did a podcast, but welcome back to the Anime Sovereigns podcast. This is episode number 10. Today's discussion, we're going to be focusing on sequels, on prequels, and kind of going hand in hand with that, shows that are like too core, like of course, like these kind of like are all in the same realm, because there's a lot of different things that kind of go into what makes a great sequel, or what necessitates a sequel in some cases. Like, we all have been in the situation where we've really enjoyed a show, and the first thing that you experience that emptiness after the show is over, and you're like, is there more? Is there going to be more at some point? And unfortunately for some of us, the answer is no. And there'll never be a sequel for the things that they like. But for some shows, they do get the fortunate circumstance of getting follow-ups, or even like prequel content, or even it could be like OVA or movie content. All of it just supplementary and auxiliary to the series itself. It can really push things up higher. So we don't really have like a set starting point or anything like that, but I think a good place to really start would be like talking about we could talk about some of the like stronger sequels that we've viewed, and we could talk about some of the weaker ones. I think that, like, in terms of film content and whatnot, like that's probably gonna be like its own section, because like I think that is kind of sets itself apart in a way, if that makes sense. But yeah, so like there's some shows that I think some people would be like, it's better, you should have just left this in season 1, bro. You didn't have to go any further. And so like the one that comes to mind when I think about sequels that people are not too big on, like people always talk about like Psychopath, where everyone that I've talked to about Psychopaths is like, man, Psychopaths was really sick, bro. I really enjoyed Psychopaths.
And then it wasn't.
And then eventually they're like, damn, bro, this shit is not it anymore.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into like the story of like the progression of like Psychopaths that Bobby can definitely like shed some light on. I know the story as well, like as somebody who has like seen only Psychopath season 1 and has heard from Bobby that you probably shouldn't continue beyond that point, is kind of like an indicator that like, yeah, like this is like one of the instances where like the sequelization process is definitely like a detractor to the experience as a whole. And yeah, like Bobby wants to kind of like share like the story for those who are like a little uninitiated on Psychopaths.
So Psychopaths, right, is the cyberpunk anime in like this dystopian future, and it's, I think, incredible. I think the way that the first 22 episodes ended, it definitely could lend itself to more content, but I found it particularly really strong because it was a very circular type of ending, right? And so I think that it was extremely poignant in just describing how awful their society is and how difficult it is to like exist in that setting. And so when I heard that there was a season 2, I actually initially was thinking to myself, that's kind of weird, because I loved how I was left off at the end of season 1, but I was hopeful. And after a lot of major staff changes, particularly the replacement of Gen Urobuchi for, I think a director or writer for Ghost in the Shell, there was definitely a big change in how Psychopaths 2 felt as a story. So I feel like Psychopaths 2, like if it were its own season, or if it was its own series, detached from the first show, maybe it wouldn't be that bad. But there's definitely certain aspects of the world and the themes that are not particularly consistent between the two. And so watching Psychopaths 2, it really feels like a slap in the face to anyone who was really deeply trying to think about the world that was set up in Psychopaths 1 and like really analyze the themes, because there's just a huge lack of consistency between the two. Psychopaths 2 like really shits on like pretty much most of what you would come to understand from the first season, as well as it really makes you suspend your disbelief in a way that the first series would never have prompted you to, like, in a million years. Like the whole futuristic sci-fi nature of it gets contorted in a way that only continues to get worse as you get to Psycho-Pass 3 and beyond.
Bro, for a second I forgot that there was a third. Goddamn.
There's a lot of Psycho-Pass content past the first season. There's like obviously Psycho-Pass 2. There's like the movie. There's like this like kind of like sub movie series called like the Crime Files or whatnot. And then it gets to Psycho-Pass 3 and like
there's also a Psycho-Pass 3 movie.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
There's a lot of Psycho-Pass, but like
and there's actually another movie that hasn't come out yet.
Dude, that's kind of fucked up. Like
a whole lot.
It's like every like subsequent like media after the first season has just like not resonated with the people who are like really like dedicated to like telling people how good of a series it is.
It's actually kind of funny. So like I just casually looked at the metric right now. This is like a scuffed ass metric, so please do not take this as like fact. But like okay, so Psycho-Pass 1 popularity on AnyList is 222,000. Okay. The second season is 93,000. So that's just the amount of people that have as an entry. So it lost I don't know, like close to a third, and then it lost another half for Psycho-Pass season 3 because it went to 46,000.
That's
so it's like obviously seasons like as you progress always have less because people drop the show. You don't just watch season 2 without watching season 1, so it's normal for it to go down. But hey, this is like my scuff metric of going like, all right, it seems there's a big drop off.
Listen. Like what I was saying, just to spoil a little bit of season 3, because no one should watch it anyways.
Yeah.
The sci-fi aspect that I was saying was getting contorted. They just straight up started having psychics in the show. Like in the first couple episodes, they replace all the main characters, and like one of the people literally can just read emotions like through like airwaves. He just like feels emotions telepathically, and it's just like, all right, this has completely removed the spirit of the show. This just doesn't. It's not the same like remotely.
Yeah. So like kind of going off of this, like I think it's important when we're talking about like sequelization and follow-up content to shows like Psycho-Pass. There's a lot of different shows that are kind of like this where it's really focused on like the world building and whatnot, and kind of making you be a part of the universe that the characters are also in, and so like a lot of the time when you're trying to focus on world building and establishing that base environment for interactions to take place, when you go into a sequel, it's kind of like, well, you already have rules established, and so like one of the worst things you can do is kind of like establish all those rules in your original series, and then your later iterations just kind of destroy that. It feels like there's a lot of wasted effort there. Like there's a lot of rules that we've come to learn, we've become familiarized with, what the situations and the environment that our characters are put in, and then sometimes these follow-ups just kind of tear that apart. And part of that is I think sometimes it can be done by just like straight oversight. Like sometimes there's little super minute details that get overlooked, but other times it's a result of we talk about this a lot, is like when a sequel happens, it doesn't necessarily mean that all the same people are going to be working on it, and that is something that's a super super big deal that happens a lot where a show is very popular or a series is very popular, but the original staff of who made the first series is not necessarily exactly 1-to-1 on the second. So there can be differences in interpretations and executions, and so like the shows that do get their original staffs on sequels, you count your blessings, because that is something really really special, and not something that every show gets.
Yeah, just in the case of Psycho-Pass 2, like Bobby already mentioned that like they like brought on like the series composition and scriptwriter for like some of the ghosts in the show works. To Ubagata, I think his name is. And like this is like the spot that like Gen Urobuchi like filled in the original series, where like he was the original plan for the entire franchise, and also like he wrote the script for the first one. But in this one, I think he was just like a planning supervisor, which it's good that he's like supervising things, but like taking him out of such an important position like really really showed in like the narrative quality.
And he's also huge shoes to fill too, right?
Yeah, for sure. There was also like a studio change from IG in the second season. Like the second season was done by Tatsunoko Production, with IG being kind of like a secondary producer on it, and that's big too. Like whenever there is a studio change, like like we've been watching anime for a long time. Usually, like, a studio change doesn't indicate like an improvement in quality if they're like passing it around to different studios. Like usually we would only like want like the core staff of any given series to like be the same, just so things are consistent. Like obviously there have been like exceptions to this, like all the projects that like WIT has given to Mappa recently. Like, but usually like when somebody like gives a studio or a project to a different studio, like there's usually like some type of a facelift, most of the time to like its detriment, and that is like something that is like we will never know like the inner workings of like the decisions that get made like when transferring a project to another studio, but as just like a viewer and like a consumer of anime, like that's not a good sign.
Yeah, and like of course, like as with every generalization, there obviously are exceptions, but like most of the time, if you're passing off a series, especially if it's really if it's a good and well regarded series, for you to pass it off, that means that something is going on internally. What that ends up being, like, we of course we as watchers are not ever gonna know, but most of the time, if your staff is really gung-ho about a project and they really care about it and they really want to see it come to fruition, the fact that they give it up to another studio like represents like maybe they don't have the budget, they don't have the time, they don't have the staff, and so like another brutal truth of the anime industry that a lot of people don't really look at when we're talking about why did this happen, because I know there's a lot of different shows that like get passed from studios to studios, and unfortunately, right, the unfortunate circumstance that you get put in is that even if the new studio does a great job with it, even if they take it and they actually do something amazing with it, there'll always be people that prefer the original's execution in that regard. So like the original could be good, and it's a series that you come to know and love, and even though the follow-up is good, it might not be done in the same exact way, and so you might create that disconnect for some people that are like, this is not what I fell in love with exactly. I recognize that it's it's a fine follow-up, but it's not exactly what I was looking for. And I think a lot of people kind of fall off a sequence in that way as well. Not even like it doesn't even necessarily have to do anything with the quality dropping. It could just be, this just is different and people are averse to change in a lot of ways. You'll quickly find out, holy shit, this song came on loud, what the hell. That was crazy. A little jump scare for our YouTube watchers out there. But and so like kind of talking about this, right, another brought up the Mappa WIT pass off. Of course, like we have to talk about Titan, who like got passed from one season to another, from season, I think they switched after S2, right? Was it after S2?
After season 3. So like season 3 into final season is where the switch from WIT to Mappa happened.
So WIT had it up to season 3 and then they passed it off. And like even though, right, I can't tell you exactly what general opinion has been about later Titan seasons. Most of the qualms that I've seen with it have come from people talking about the method of adaptation, if that makes sense. They're more mad at like the way that they're taking the pacing, or certain things that are not being uncovered in ways that they maybe thought were more important or whatever. But I have had a really hard time, especially in later seasons of Titan, kind of getting a grasp of like what people think about the post WIT world. I think Mappa is doing a fine job with Titan. I think they're a great studio for this type of content. Like I was talking about how they're really good at like really gritty, really graphic, especially in terms of like their animation. We know they're a top-notch studio, but like I just kind of had that disconnect. Like the first few seasons of Titan, And I'm not even necessarily saying that this has to be like just because of the studio, but I remember when the first few seasons of Titan were coming out, it's all people talk about. It's literally it. And everyone was like, "Yeah, dude, I gotta watch Titan. I gotta watch Titan. I gotta watch Titan." I feel like I don't get that. I don't have that same. I'm not getting that same like popular response. Of course, it's obviously one of the most popular series of all time, but like I just feel like word of mouth has kind of died down for. I don't know. How do you guys feel about how Titan has progressed? I don't really know how to.
It's really difficult to like keep track of like, you know, the fan reactions, just because like of the sheer amount of people watching this franchise. Like, you know, like as you said, like when the first season aired, like literally everybody was on it, and then there was that 4-year gap between season 1 and season 2, which really like, you know, killed off like the word of mouth like a lot. But just from like my experience, like the things that they've been focusing on, like just like between the seasons, have like drastically changed. Like with like from season 1, it was like a nice like balance of like cool like action from wit that we've like grown to like, you know, appreciate over the years, along with like that mystery of like, you know, withholding information, and people like, you know, speculating like what's gonna happen, and that's where like, you know, most of the word of mouth was generated from. And then there was the 4-year gap where nobody was talking about it. And like season 2 and season 3 like focused more on like the lore aspects than they did just like the raw action. Like I think season 3 of Titan was like executed the best, in my opinion, just because like I think the idea that like, you know, there's like some corruption like within like, you know, just human society, like like in Attack on Titan, everybody is like, oh, like humanity has to like band together in order to fight this giant conflict. Otherwise, we're just all gonna get like, we're all just gonna get squashed by the Titans. But you know, season 3 like demonstrated that there was more to it than just like, oh, all humans are on the same side. And I thought that conflict was like really interesting. And the second part of season 2 like really focused on the action and getting to the bottom of everything. So like the way that like Titan has progressed, like just from like when it was in Wit's hands, I think is like, you know, the word of mouth and the popularity is like somewhat warranted. Like I think it's like a pretty like good a series, and like I can see like why it's popular. And then when Mappa took the reins on the final seasons, and you know, however many parts the final season is going to be, Lamau, it's definitely like the biggest like change that I noticed was like, you know, the art style, just the way that the characters are drawn. It's more darker. And some people like say that like, oh, it's more faithful to how they are drawn in the manga, because obviously manga is not motion. So like they have to, there's more emphasis placed on like how the characters are drawn in stills, and you know, paneling and all that. And a lot of people say that Mappa's interpretation of those aspects are more faithful. If I had to like say which was more like quality in terms of animation, I would definitely say Witch. I think it fits better. But yeah, like like full disclaimer, this is something that like a lot of people will just like not even notice to begin with. Like they'll just like watch this and they'll be like, oh, more Attack on Titan. Some will be like completely like oblivious to like the fact that there was a studio change, and like to me, like it's not like a necessary like part of like enjoying it, but like, you know, if you're like deep into the medium and you kind of like want to know why certain things feel different, it's definitely something that you should like look into, in my opinion. But
I actually think that there's two main things that I would have to say for like the differences, for, you know, just on points that haven't already been mentioned by you guys. But the one thing that I remember seeing a lot as like a lot of the later seasons were airing were people doing the Mappa Wit comparisons, especially when there were flashback scenes. Mappa would redo some of the flashbacks that had kind of harkening back to the first season of the Wit adaptation. And a lot of the things that I would see was people saying stuff like, oh, Mappa uses like all this garbage CG. Like the Mappa is definitely a lot more liberal with their CG usage than what was. But on the other hand, though, you could also make the claim that back when season 1 was airing, the peaks of animation for Attack on Titan were debatably like the best at that time. The only real other competition would be like Fate Zero, but there was a strong argument that Attack on Titan was the best. The thing that kept it back though, and something that people would criticize back in those days too, was that the first season of Attack on Titan was very PowerPointy in a lot of situations. Like there's a lot of still images. And, like,
they picked and chose. They picked and chose when.
Yeah, so you could almost. I feel like it's almost fair to say that Wit had higher highs and lower lows, but Mappa is a lot more consistent. Yeah, so I mean, those are the two things. It's the CG usage and the general like trajectory of like how the peaks and valleys of the animation generally.
Yeah, so not even like, because obviously I don't want to keep this to be only like a studio versus studio type thing, because I do want to kind of talk about like some of the narrative choices and some of the tonal shifts between seasons as well. So like I think Titan's a good one for that, because I think what a lot of people fell in love with in the first season of Titan was that very high octane action, very fluid motion, very very high animation fidelity. But as it goes on, it gets more the kind of the politics behind human beings, and kind of the controversies and kind of the insidious nature of man kind of creeps more and more into the story as the time goes on. And I'm sure that some people were kind of turned off from that as that shift happens, because it's kind of like that it's kind of like the shock factor value, right, where you didn't expect for Titan to be the way that it was. A lot of people surely didn't. I'm sure Titan was probably early on in a lot of people's like anime watching careers in the first place, because it also was very widely distributed. Like it was very available. It was very easy to watch Titan whenever it came out. And so people come in expecting like, they're just going to be beating ass the whole time. And I'm sure like when we started getting into the more heavy politics stuff with, season 2 and season 3, I'm sure some people were like, this kind of isn't what I signed up for anymore. And so like, the question we have to ask ourselves is like, is there, what is valued more? Is sticking to that solid identity that you kind of made a name for yourself on more valuable, or is branching out and being more encapsulating more aspects of a solid narrative more important? I would be more inclined to be in the second camp. Like I like that they tried to make it more than just, okay, we're just fighting giant ass kaiju the entire time. I do enjoy the attempt. I do think in some aspects it isn't necessarily the best when they try to execute, but I do commend them for trying at the very least. I think it's important that they try.
I think
go ahead. Yeah.
I think like the politics stuff is what made it like a super big talking point though, because it made it like a fun thing to talk about. Because like it's you run out of things to talk about when it's just like, damn man, that shit look cool. Because that's kind of where it ends at. It's like, oh damn, that shit look cool. But like when you made it like a whole like political thing, it's like, oh, what's gonna come next? And it's like that's what made it like a big like phenomenon. I think. I don't know. I don't remember that much because it's still a while ago now.
Yeah.
Like when did Titan blow up like massive? Like it was obviously really big when it first started.
Yeah, like, it was. I mean, it was pretty big out of the gates, right? I don't know.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it definitely was.
Because I mean, it was very popular in manga format beforehand too, right? Or
I have no idea.
It was pretty popular before, but it really exploded when the anime adaptation came out, because the manga art was not nearly as good, but the story was still very interesting and cool and unique at the time. Look at this. So.
Number one most popular all time.
Yeah, like I think it's like pretty inarguable that like the peak of like Titan's popularity was at the beginning of the anime adaptation, and it really hasn't like reached that peak again. But it's still like in like the mainstream view,
It makes it harder to like think about because like Titan came out like 10 years ago originally, 9 whatever. Yep. And like, the internet was different at that time. So like now, like everything, now when people talk about it, you see it everywhere, I
mean, I think it's also fair to say that like over the past nearly 10 years that Attack on Titan has existed in anime form, like its quality has kind of hovered around the same point, I think. But the rest of the field of anime, I feel like on average has gotten better in terms of what I can consider memorable.
Yeah,
probably.
I mean, anime is
the last 2 years have been fire.
Yeah, it's like it really can't be understated, like how insane anime is right now. Like it is it is insane that I can pick up 20 shows and not want to drop any of them. Like that's like something feasible. That was me last season. Like last season, I was watching 20 shows and I was like, all this stuff is like at least decent. Like this is crazy. This was not the case.
There used to be a lot of shit in like 2012 and stuff.
Like so I definitely think that like, you know, it's kind of it's like power creep in a way, right? Like as time goes on, the different aspects of your shows have to be better to keep up with the quality that other people are bringing to the table. People are making crazy shit, and you can't stand on just like one merit anymore. Like there are shows that were able to be carried by singular aspects of series, such as, you know, animation quality and stuff like that, right? But nowadays you can't really be like solo carried by it. Like you can in some aspects, but I think like most of the time when that happens, it's because like people, for lack of a better term, they just don't get it, if that makes sense. Like they're not looking deep into the show. They're just kind of staying on that surface level. And so like, you know, the Demon Slayer stands, no matter what you say to them, they're always gonna post a gif about some random scene in Demon Slayer that somehow is better than everything else that's ever been created. But like, it's not enough, right? It's not enough to just be, you know, a show with super great animation. Like there are shows that are doing that, and they also have very well written narratives, and they also have great storytelling, and they also have great world building. There's shows that are doing all of them at once. You can't afford to just be like that one-dimensional show anymore. You will have fans and you will attract a certain fan base and they will enjoy it, and that is fine. But in terms of like overall quality, I just think it's gotten way harder.
The problem with like being just a show that's like, oh, this show looks really good, is that like so many shows look really good now.
Yeah.
Like, because before you stood out when you did that, and it was like, now it's like, okay, cool, like every show looks awesome.
So,
not every show, but you know what I mean. Like so many shows.
Even to that point, right? If we're talking about Titan in and of itself, right? So one of the biggest things, of course, people were talking about Mappa and the CG. CG is so much better now than it used to be. Like so much better. To the point where like there are shows that I pick up that are full CG, and I'm like fine. I'm fine watching them all the way through, even though it's full CG, because the quality of CG has gone up drastically since we started watching anime. So like stuff like that like matters a lot. It used to be like you'd pick up a show and you would see some really egregious CG and you'd be like, damn, I really don't want to watch this anymore. I really don't want to look at this any longer than I have to. But like I think the industry as a whole has just gotten a lot better at like aspects like that. So it is definitely like, and that's something that goes into the sequel theory as well. Is like you have to you know, create something that is valuable to the overall series, but you also have to keep up with the demand and your competition as well. There's a lot of competition nowadays. There's a lot of shows that come out every year. And so like if you're not doing something to really hammer it home, I feel like you can kind of get buried in a way. As horrible as that is, we wouldn't like anyone's works to go to waste, but there's just so many shows, man. Like there's just so many fucking shows every season. It's like hard to avoid. Like I don't know. It's difficult. It's really difficult. And like
just like just like tying like this back to like, you know, this like the sequel, the sequelization process, and like just like wrapping things up on like Attack on Titan. Yep. Like when I think of like, you know, what is like a good sequel, I think of like you have to like refine like your strengths of like what like you have to like really recognize like what made your show like good in the first place, and like either like keep that or like add more like merits to the show, and like that, and like that's like the conversation that like I like have in my head about like Attack on Titan. Like if I think like does it like succeed in like its sequels, because like we said before that like the reasons why Attack on Titan has like been good have like kind of changed like since like the first season, where it's just like stacked more things on top of each other. That doesn't appeal to everybody. It appeals to some people, not everybody, but like if I think like, man, has Attack on Titan like had good sequels over the years? Like I would say yes, like in my personal opinion, just because like I prefer like having like more layers of things to think about beyond like just like the animation quality and the audio quality. I think like there can only be like more, like I think it's a good thing, like even if not everybody will like agree with like the narrative direction,
Mhm.
there's just like more to talk about. And um I think the reason why like some people are like down on Attack on Titan is because like they've read the manga and people are
Yeah.
like not very high on how like the manga has like concluded.
Mhm.
And like that's fair. That's fair. But just for the people who are experiencing like in the moment in anime form, like I think it's fine as a sequel.
Yeah,
You know?
and like we'd like to keep you guys informed that like this is primarily a discussion about animation sequels. Of course, there are things to talk about when mangas get continuations and whatnot, but when we get it in less ample doses with anime, the dynamic tends to be a little bit different. Sometimes there's long waits in between. Sometimes you just sit in limbo wondering if there's ever going to be continuation for a long ass time. You get
Sometimes you get
drift-
like 10 years later.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so like there's I think it is very difficult in general. Now there are shows that have done it, but I think it's very difficult to create sequels that are held in higher regard than the original. I think that's something that's just difficult in general, because in some ways the execution and the quality of a sequel kind of stands on the merits of the original series in the first place. Like, what makes a great sequel, right? It is appealing to that original identity and that X factor that kind of made people fall in love with the series in the first place. And so while I do think there are some shows, though, I do think there are some shows that the argument can be made that the sequel could be better than the original. And so I want to talk about some of those. Like, if you guys have any in mind that you want to talk about, I have like one or two. But this one was from last season. That you guys, people were raving, right? And this is something that the Bobby spoke about this series. Really was really thought provoking, because it made me think. It made me think that like there is it's really difficult. Like that's really something incredible to be able to create sequels that seem to continually up the bar as time goes on. Because of all the factors that we're talking about. Like there's people, your competition's only getting better as time goes on, and you still want to bring something new and exciting and compelling to the table, but you still want to make sure that people know that this is that show, right? This is that show that you picked up and fell in love with, and we want to continue. And so like when we did the review of last season, and he was talking about, it's like one of the only shows that he's thought of that continually gets better as time goes on. Like, that's really impressive to me.
It's a strong trend. It's because there are shows, there's tons of second seasons where, maybe my favorite moment from the series is from the second season, but I wouldn't call the second season overall better. This show's trend, like the trajectory upwards, is so strong. It's kind of staggering to like really look back at like the first season, which is not bad at all, but recognize that it's not even like close to how good like the later seasons are, which is very scary, honestly.
It's like good.
Oh, like I would definitely like agree on that point. Just like I have like very like high like high thoughts for like the beginning of this series. Like I thought it was like very good when it aired in like 2019. The people who have like read the manga have like voiced their opinions on how like good of an adaptation they think it is. Everybody is enjoying this series. I don't think like there's like a way for somebody to like experience this series and like say that it is like not quality or like not like one of the best like in its genre. Like it is like that, like staggering like how like good of a series this is, and like I've had a lot of time to think about it since like this like last season finished up, but like I am now in the boat that like it has only like gone up since the first. At first I was like on the boat where like like the quality is like consistent. Like I've loved this series like since like the first season aired, and I've like loved all the subsequent seasons, but like I don't think I can lie to myself anymore. Like this is it.
Like no more copia.
This is it. Yeah.
This is what we got.
Yeah, it's like part of me like feels bad, and like this is like tying it back into like sequels and like how you were saying that like, it's not too often that like subsequent media like lives up to the original, if the original is like very popular like that, like Kaguya was. Like part of me like feels bad saying that like, oh, like we like looking back on it, like, yeah, this was like of lesser quality than what we're used to now, because I don't want it to have like a negative connotation. I don't want people to like think like, oh, they're starting off like slow and then it's gonna really ramp up. It's just like it's so like incredible like how a series like Kaguya has only been able to get better. And like you said, that's extremely rare, but we're here to appreciate it like in the moment, you know?
Yeah. That's definitely a fact. Where Dylan at? I'm trying to get where you at, Dylan? Well, what's you got a sequel in mind that you feel like outshines the original?
Can I say Monogatari?
Yo.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
That's one that I definitely wanted to talk about.
You get the second season and it really takes off.
Yeah, no, I mean, bro, we can have an entire episode on Monogatari. Like, there's so much to talk about when this series is brought into play. But yeah, I mean, it's like one of those series that's also super long, right? It's like super long. And so it's really easy to like kind of get lost for people, I think, especially like, I think the funniest thing when it comes to mind when I think about Monogatari is people looking up watch order posts, like, how do I watch this? Like, which one am I supposed to do first?
It's funny because like on AniList, like they have it in like canonical order, I suppose. Okay. So like some people like might get really confused if they're just like using like these anime database sites. But like airing order is like probably like how most people like should watch it, just because like the thing about like Monogatari as like a series and like how like it has like very much succeeded in like the sequelization process is that like it's like evolutionary, like it builds upon itself like better than like almost any other series in my opinion, just because like, you know, Bake Monogatari and like Nisei Monogatari are like the first like 2 seasons of the series that in airing order, and then it kind of like takes you back in some of the OVAs where you see events like that date before Bake, and there's a reason for that. They don't just like do it in a non-linear order for no reason. It's because like you're supposed to get this information now because it says something about the characters that is relevant to like what's happening now. It adds like new layers and recontextualizes like what you have already seen. And then like when it gets to the point where like second season airs, like, man, this series like really took off. Like this is like the point in Monogatari that I feel like I was convinced that it's one of the best things that's ever happened in this medium, you know? Like the way it like grew the seeds that were planted earlier on, and how it really like flipped the switch on like what you thought you knew. It's just like it's so hard to describe without like, you know, just giving like direct examples or like showing like how they really like depicted like all of these characters like the way they did. But, you know, just don't just take my word for it. Like Bobby's a huge advocate for this series as well.
So I've seen the Monogatari series multiple times over, and what I have to say is the first time I watched Bake and Nisei Monogatari, my impression was, oh, this is like really cool, like very neat stylized type of thing, bunch of mini arcs, main character goes from place to place to place. And that's my impression of what they are when I go from back in time to when I watch it then. Now, when I look at it, the way I see Bake and Nisei now is Bake Monogatari is establishing and setting up characters, and Nisei Monogatari is foreshadowing. So, in my brain, when I first watch it, I think to myself, Bake Monogatari is a complete work. Nisei Monogatari is like kind of a fun like side thing from Bake Monogatari. Now, having watched the rest of the series and being able to rewatch Bake and Nisei.
Hello?
One sec, sorry. I got interrupted. So, the difference between how my perspective was back then versus how my perspective is now is that when I see second season, I recognize that a lot more in Bake and Nisei Monogatari is not just its own story. It was actually setting up something extremely nuanced and extremely interesting. Where if you go back and rewatch Bake and Nisei Monogatari, you recognize that the things that you learned later on are actually extensions of small things that you might not have picked up on the first time through.
Mhm.
And I think that it really recontextualizes, like Jeffrey was saying, like everything you had seen beforehand. It's really incredible how there was such a strong vision for so many of these characters, in which you have to really unravel the layers of all of the characters as you keep on going. And I think as you continue to find more depth within each of the characters and their story arcs, you just find more appreciation for it as time goes on.
It's really a Shaft special, man.
It's kind of interesting because, like, okay, so we all know second seasons are like not guaranteed, obviously,
Yeah.
and like, you know, continuations, whatever.
Mhm.
And like the Monogatari series, like this clearly there's a lot of intentionality in like the way they separated their seasons and how they did this stuff, just from like everything you guys have said. So like, how do you know you're going to be able to get your payoff? Like, it's like the type of thing, like, I wonder.
I think the source material was just so wildly popular, they just
Mhm.
knew that there was no way it was crashing and burning.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Sometimes, and we see that confidence in the industry. Sometimes, like before Spy X Family came out, Part 2 was already confirmed, right?
Yeah.
Like they knew like people are gonna love this, to the point where we're confident that we can put out a sequel, even if it doesn't necessarily meet their their metric expectations. They know it's gonna be X amount of popular. Like, people,
Yeah, because like part of the reason why like continuations it's harder to say that they're better than like the originals. It's just because like the creators don't know if they're going to be able to finish, so they have to wrap things up, and then they find out, it's like, wait, by the way, you can keep going. It's like, ah, shit, okay.
There's actually like another Nisio Isin work that in which the opposite of Monogatari occurred. It's called a Medaka Box, which was a show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So this is actually a really, really unfortunate case because it was made by Gainax, who knows what they're doing now. They haven't been active in a long time. So Studio Gainax was the one who produced this. They produced the first 2 seasons, and one of the main things to keep in mind about Medaka Box as a series is it's a satirical battle shonen type of series. And so it's difficult to really grasp exactly what the show is trying to say until you're already a little bit deep into it. So when you start getting into the real like superpowered battles and the second season of Medaka Box, that's really just an introduction to like the power system and how things work in Medaka Box Abnormal. And the arc in the manga that occurs after this is where the series really, really comes into fruition, and it becomes extremely clear like why this is a very special series. Unfortunately, that there was not enough success among the first 2 seasons for that highly anticipated third season to ever exist. And so what they did was they took the primary character in that third section of the story, gave him 1 OVA, and just finished the anime forever.
Tough.
Really
tough.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
Really, really unfortunate.
I gotta imagine like throughout anime history, this type of thing has happened a lot.
Yeah, of course.
like a ton. And that is a level of pain that is hard to surpass, man. If you're out there and you really love a series and it gets an adaptation, that's already enough reason to celebrate in and of itself, right? Imagine like really following whether it's a light novel or a manga or whatever, it gets an adaptation and you're like super excited. You watch it through, you're like having a great time, and then of course, once again, when you get towards the end of it, the question starts coming to your mind, like, are they gonna keep going? Are we gonna get more of this or not? And just in some ways, like, I think having the closure of saying like of being told like, no, it's not really in the cards, is in some ways better than being left in limbo for like years and years and years. And I say limbo for years and years and years. One of my favorite series, Madoka, which is original, right? And so I don't even have source material to go on. I don't even have source material to like, right? So it's not even like I can stop watching the anime, go and read, and stay up to date if it's original. So like when Madoka ended, it was literally just like okay, and then Rebellion happened. And that just raised more questions.
And then we got more.
Yeah, and then we're sitting there the entire time like, is there more? I don't understand. And they do the side stories with Magia Record, and we're just like, are they ever? And then they announce the movie 10 years later. It's like, what is going on here?
I think one of the most shocking things about Madoka in particular is I think Rebellion is one of the greatest follow-ups to a series I've personally ever experienced. What's really crazy is that Gen Urobuchi did not intend for this to exist when he was first making Madoka Magica. This is like, they just told, because there was an interview done where he basically said, yeah, they really wanted me to do more Madoka, but I couldn't really think of something. But then one day I just kind of was like, I got it. And he made this. And it's just like, it's almost more impressive. I think there's a respect given to series that can plan out something so long and stick to the game plan. But I think it's also incredible that something so poignant as this and so like mind warping and recontextualizing as this to the main series can just exist almost seemingly like on a whim.
Yeah. No, honestly, like I cannot stress enough how random it felt. Like I remember like literally yelling in my room when this movie got announced, because I was like, bro, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? I thought we were done. And in some ways, like when Madoka, when Rebellion ended, it almost felt like they wanted people to just argue about the interpretation of it till the end of time. And so I was like, this is just what we're gonna do. And then no. then this shit. So like it especially with originals, like you can really just be left out there, and you just have no idea if anything is ever gonna happen. And in some ways, like I said, it's worse than being told like, no, you're not getting anything. Like you're just not getting it. Because at least if you get told you're not getting anything, you have that solace. Like, I'm not gonna wait around. I'm not waiting for anything anymore. It's okay. I can cope. Drink my copium for the rest of the time and just move on.
That type of thing like never really happens though, where they just like straight up say like, yeah, we're not making any more.
That's
like,
true.
You just kind of have to like assume like, oh, I have to like be satisfied with this, unless like there is like, one of those things where like at the end of like any given series they like say like, yeah, season 2 is coming, or yeah, a follow-up movie is coming. Like if you just like don't have that information, they're not going to give it to you. Like
yeah, that's true. And I think like some of that contextualizing is on the viewer itself. Like we're the ones that like will be like, does this have a chance of getting a follow-up? How well did it do? Did the Blu-ray sell well? Like we're the ones that'll take the extra step to be like, I wonder if this actually has any chance of getting continuation. But yeah, very rarely is it like hard deconfirmed, like, no, we're not gonna do that. I think they kind of want to leave their options open,
I we were thinking about that with Aquatope. Where when we were getting to like towards the end of Aquatope, so before it finished, we're like, oh, I wonder if there's gonna be a movie here. And then like it like just kind of like the ending, it kind of made us feel like it probably isn't gonna get one, even though it was written in a way where it felt like there could be a movie, or at least something after.
Yeah, I remember thinking while watching it week to week, like, is there some type of like supplementary content they're gonna do to it, whether it's a movie, an OVA, specials, whatever. There's a lot of different forms that you can do follow-up content with, but yeah, it's like it's week to week. Like for me, I don't know about you guys, but like there's a certain point when we're watching things week to week, and I think this just comes with like just being people that have just watched a lot of shows and kind of can identify the science of like when you reach a certain point in a narrative or a story. We know ahead of time how many episodes a series is, and so like when it gets towards the end, where it's getting towards the latter half, the latter quarter, and you feel like maybe there are things that are still left unresolved, or maybe there is still like so much to expand upon. That's where you really start thinking like, are we gonna get more? Like, are they setting up for a sequel? Is it meant to be this way? There's a lot of different ways that shows have kind of done their storytelling in that way, that it's just kind of like, are they trying to, I don't know, what are they gonna do to me? Am I gonna be waiting for 6 years for a follow-up for this? I really don't know. Sometimes it's really tough, I think.
Yoka.
There's like a weird like gray area. Like what?
He said Yoka.
Oh no.
A show that doesn't end.
There's some project that was announced a while ago that no information on, but so that's better than nothing, which is what I was sitting with for like 9 years. But
Crazy.
10 years.
Like a lot of the times, there's like a weird like gray area that I find myself in whenever I'm like watching something that like could potentially like have a sequel. Because like I'm in the camp where like I try to like put myself in the headspace of like the creators, because like I respect like creators like visions and like what they intend to say in whatever amount of time that they have, which is to like imply that like sometimes I'm like against sequels happening sometimes if I feel like there's nothing more to say, or if I feel like they have explored everything that they've wanted to explore in any given series. So like, but you know, when the ending is like left kind of like ambiguous, if there could be more, like, you know, you always have to like ask the question. But like, there's like a handful of series where I actually would just like not want any more, even if there was some.
Name one. Go ahead.
One of the series that like comes to mind whenever I like think of that is like Code Geass. Most people have seen Code Geass. Most people like know what's up. Most people have like seen it till like the end of its TV run, but like it's one of those things that like recently it like got like movies done for it. Like the most recent movie is like Lelouch of the like the Resurrection, which is a continuation of the end. Now, I have not seen this film.
Neither have I.
I figure a lot of people who are like fans of this series like don't want to see that film because the ending of like Lelouch or Code Geass season 2 was arguably like one of the best endings to like ever happen, just like from like how much it like just capped off the story type beat. And so like when I'm thinking of like, man, this doesn't need a sequel. Like you could just end it here.
Yeah.
And then like Lelouch of the Resurrection comes out and like, okay, like what's up with this? Like why are you like changing like the ending like this? And like this is like one of like I think like the detriments of like the sequelization process, where like something like gets like really popular, and then like because of like fan demand, it kind of like is forced to continue in a way. Not that I believe that this is particularly like the case for this series. It's just that, like, you ended so well. Everybody like loves your ending. Like, why do you feel the need to continue? It's just like we don't know why it happened, you know?
Yeah. I going hand in hand with that, I have one that I also think of whenever that comes to mind, fully coolly. That you know, the original 6-episode OVA is something that I hold in very high regard. Not everyone agrees with me. I think it is something that it's like one of the better coming of age stories, and it's told in a super weird Gainax way that this show is kind of like why I like Gainax so much in the first place. And so, you know, when the 6 episodes aired, it was done. Like I was okay with it being done. And then they did sequels. They did 2 sequels. They did Progressive and the Alternative. And then they announced more sequels after Progressive and Alternative. And so it's really scary because, you know, the original story is something that I really value. But, you know, myself and other people that were really big fans of the series weren't as big of the fans as the of the follow-ups, you know, of Progressive, of Alternative, and then, you know, going into Grunge, which is the new one, it's like a completely different. It's not even. It's like CG kind of, right?
What a
it's
name.
Not even
Grunge.
Yeah, and so like, you know, it's no longer even Gainax. So it's like I just I don't know. It's just like, did we really have to do this? Like, I don't know. It feels like, you know, sometimes people see an opportunity to capitalize on popularities of you know, of love shows, and they're so concerned with what they could do. They're not concerned with what they should do. It's sometimes they should just leave that shit alone, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely like instances like this where I don't find myself begging for sequels like too often. Like one show that I'm glad like never like got a sequel was like A Place Further Than the Universe.
Yes!
Like this is like I've gone on record saying that this is probably like the most complete like single core show that I've ever seen. It said everything it wanted to say. It explored everything it wanted to explore. There was really like no stone unturned that the show like, you know, left. And like if I'm looking for like a complete experience in like a nice like 13 episode package, like this is the show, bro. Like I don't think anything even comes close to like how complete like this show is within its 13 episode run.
Yeah, it makes
I
them
would
both
not I would
13
never
episodes.
be asking for a sequel to the show.
Yeah.
I think it is fine. Like this is like something that like doesn't overstay its welcome, which I feel like is something that kind of gets forgotten with like, you know, popularity kind of forcing series to continue, or like, oh man, we gotta like make more of this like for financial reasons or just because like the fans want it, like, or anything like that. And you know, I think series like this are a rarity where it's not too often people like say like, please don't make more of this, you know. And but there's something special about shows like this where I know from beginning to end this is a full series, you know.
Yeah, and so like there's two points I want to kind of branch off with in terms of that. And so the first being, you know, when we talk about sequels, prequels, you know, extra content, anything like that, right? I think it's important to establish goals, right? What are we looking to accomplish? Like when we make extra content for a series, what are we looking to accomplish? Is there parts of the narrative that still need to be told, or is there contextualization that is very valuable to the viewing experience, for, you know, for the viewers in general, for the world building, for the characterization, for anything like that? Is this something super valuable that we need to be doing? And so like sometimes it feels like, yes, like this is something super necessary, and people, you know, people need to see this is something that we need to keep going, because some stories are just not, they're not short enough to be told in 13 episodes, right? Like some stories just can't be done. And so like to that point, right, Summertime Render, which is airing this season, and started airing last season, is not a show that I think could be done in 13 eps. Like I just don't think it's possible. And we've seen how this show has utilized its longer course, right? And so like it kind of like it's one of the benefits of this manga being finished before the anime started, which is like a super big deal. When we're talking about, you know, is your show gonna release and have 25 episodes, or is it gonna have the standard 12 or 13? But that's what I mean by like goals. It's like, okay, this show is very clearly 25 episodes for a reason, and at no point during it am I feeling like, man, this is really like drawn out, or they're just like, you know, trying to fit their episode quota. It really feels like this show is using all of its time, and all of it is necessary, and I don't feel that way with every show. I don't feel that way with every show at all. Sometimes, you know, there's dead space or like certain things that they don't really need to do, but this is kind of that other side where, you know, Place Further Than Universe uses its 13 episodes to perfection. I think Summertime Render is one of the better shows at using its 25 episodes like to the full extent. Of course, it's not finished yet, but at this point, like we know what the show is about. It's been pretty standout. So
to speak more on like Summertime Render, like for certain things, I actually like went to like the manga equivalent of like where like I had like some questions of. And like so far it's been like pretty like one-to-one with like how it has like chosen to like adapt this series, but like I also like just speaking on like the time that it's used, like it like from where it is in the manga to where it is in the anime right now, it seems like it's gonna adapt literally everything. There's no cuts anywhere, and like that's like I can't stress like how like rare this is, where like there's like a conclusive like end for an adaptation like this, because most of the time when like when like manga gets adapted into anime, most of the time the manga is still going. Like there is more story to be told in that form. Like the original vision of the creator is still going on, and this is where like you kind of get like weird cutoff points where like you know that there is more, but like are we gonna get more in anime form? And it's like it's one of the things that like, you know, doesn't feel good, because like of how much like you enjoy any given like anime series, you know, is like what's gonna happen. Like one of the things, I'm not really like sure how much this ties into like, you know, sequelization, but like when Full Metal Alchemist was being adapted in anime form, like the manga was still going, and the reason why like Full Metal Alchemist like 2003 exists is because it like outpaced the manga. And like that's something that doesn't really happen either. It's just that like they actually like continued beyond like where like material that they had adapted, just because like the series was like so popular and they needed something to do. And so it created an anime only ending, which was eventually like rectified in Brotherhood mostly. And like that is like a result of like, oh man, like how are we like going to use our time, or like how much are we like planning to use like the material for just like for the sake of making sequel material, or just like more material for the fans to consume. It's just like these like external factors beyond just like what you see on the screen is it can like really influence like your experience or how the final product turns out, you know?
Yeah.
Like one example that like I think is like really strange. There's like one that hasn't even come out yet. The final arc of Bleach is being animated after several years.
Yeah.
Which so I think that this is in some ways really cool that they decided to, after several years of adapting Bleach and then stopping the anime because it started tanking in popularity because of the events of the final arc that was animated in the anime and how poorly received it was in the manga. They cut off the anime, but they're going back to animate the final arc of Bleach, which I think is both really cool in that you're going to give all the fans of Bleach, because in its heyday Bleach was so incredibly popular, touted as one of the big three, and it's finally going to be getting an anime adaptation to finish it for the anime only fans. I have concerns though, because as a manga reader of Bleach, I know how Bleach ends, and so I also recognize that it was kind of rushed in the final fight. The final fight I also think was just horribly executed. I think it was actually terrible. So I'm honestly kind of curious to see if this adaptation will attempt to rectify what was so poorly done at the end of the manga in Bleach, because I don't think this final arc was bad, but I think the way Bleach ended was extremely poor. And so I'm really curious to see what this does, if this attempts to adapt one for one, or if it tries to go beyond what the manga accomplished, because I think it's clear to most of the manga reading fans that Bleach was getting pressured to end, not really end because it was supposed to.
Yeah, and it's not like, I don't think Bleach is, I mean, Bleach wasn't really a victim of circumstance either, right? Like, they could have done this a while ago.
They could have,
Yeah, it's not like they don't have the budget or anything like that. Like, I think they could have done it. What'd you say?
What studio is this?
Hero.
It's the same one to do like a bunch of the long shonen, like
One Piece,
Naruto.
Shit.
That's what I mean by like, there's no shortage of money here. Like they
they're swimming money.
Yeah, exactly. Money is not an issue for studios like this. And so like, so while Bleach, it definitely is that duality where like, you as someone that has watched Bleach before, you're like, I don't really know, if this is the right call this late, especially knowing what the source material is from an adaptation standpoint. But I'm sure some people, I'm sure there are plenty of people that are like, oh my god, Bleach is coming back, like holy shit, pop off. And like
there's been actually a very, very positive reception I've seen for the return of Bleach, which is really cool. I think it works because the biggest flaw with the series is that the progression is extremely linear. Like the way that the fans will talk about Bleach is like, the critics of Bleach will be like, okay, well, every arc is just a rehash of the previous arc, which, I mean, at this point, if you're doing it like this in the anime, you haven't seen the previous arc in like several years, so maybe it's fresh again. I don't know.
Yeah, perhaps, but
a lot of like my cousins who like would casually watch anime and like used to watch Bleach, they said they were hyped for it. So I don't know. I think overall people want it.
It's super popular, like no matter what. So I think obviously like it'll generate X amount of attention and buzz. And I also think that like without sounding scathing, right? It exists in a genre where like sometimes execution isn't necessarily needed to be the most popular, if that makes sense. I'm not trying to be a dickhead about this, but like it exists in battle shonen genre, which like there is some really good stuff in the genre, but it also attracts the newest people to the medium. So like there's a lot of people that watch Battle Shonen that haven't really watched a whole lot of other stuff, and so they're not as good at identifying the signs of like, oh, this was like really good progression, or has really good pacing, or like this is like just written really well, right? And so like it may not necessarily need to be like incredibly good to appease those people. You, of course, Bobby, are kind of screwed because you recognize the signs, and if it ends up being bad,
my hopium right now is hoping
That is
for
gonna
the
be
problems that I had previously. I'm not gonna get my expectations up, but I'm going to watch it only because there's a very minute chance that they fix my problems with the ending of the source material.
It's like one of those things you're like cursed with knowledge, right? Like that's like really what it is. Like we are cursed with the knowledge of like how things what makes a truly well-crafted narrative, and so like we don't have the blissful ignorance of just being like, well, they're killing each other and this is dope.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some fans who read the end of Bleach and were like, oh, this is really cool. And then for me, I'm just like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, planned for, like, you can't just write things like this. This wasn't like shown at all in a comprehensive. Like,
you can't just put words on paper. It doesn't just.
It be like that. It really do. It really. And so like segueing off of that, right? So I was talking about like how Bleach is not a victim of circumstance. They obviously have the money, they have the popularity. If they wanted to do this at any point, they could have, right? But a follow-up that was a very big victim of circumstance was Wonder Egg, right? Wonder Egg was 100% a victim of circumstance, where animation studio crunch, it is a lot, right? And so like watching Wonder Egg was like it was really an insane experience, right? Because as we're watching it, all of us are looking at each other like, this is it, guys. Like this is the one. Like what the fuck? What's happening here? This is great. And then we get partway through, and the studio has some internal issues, lead to some animation crunch. They had to go on a break week. They decided to release the 13th episode as a sequel. And unfortunately, that sequel was not what we were looking for. In terms of adding to the experience, because it's like one of those things where it did an extremely good job establishing its identity. It had great world building, it had characters that we love. It pretty much had all the makings of like just an absolutely top tier show. And I still think it does. And so like sometimes follow-ups, people are going to get into arguments over, especially when we talk about some of the more popular shows, because more popular shows like your Dragon Balls and your Narutos, right? They release non-canon follow-ups, right? They do non-canon movies and OVAs and stuff like that, right? That's not like that for this. This stuff is obviously like it's a part of what they were trying to put into the show. That being said, sometimes it is better to separate. Even though it was supposed to be a part of the main show, I think sometimes it's still better to separate these works, even though it technically is a sequel to the original Wonder Egg. I view these two things as like two completely separate entities. And I know other people do as well, because like it really is something that I think that it's like one of those things where it can tarnish. Like if you always view them as a single unit, I feel like a lot of people will overlook the value that the original show brought to us. And it was a lot of value, in fairness. It was a lot of value that the show brought to us, and I would hate for that to get overshadowed by this, which only happened because of the ugliness of the industry and how everything turned out. So yeah, it sucks.
My take on like Wonder Egg now, because like obviously like when it was airing, like it was I had like such a high opinion on this series. Like I felt like it was doing everything right, but like after the fact, in retrospect, like I tried to like diagnose like where like the disease started, that like led to this, and like you said, it was like mostly like industry stuff, like lack of like planning. Like even like as the series was airing, there was like talks of like crunch within Cloverworks, and that's something I feel like they should take responsibility for.
Absolutely.
Like as well. I'm not just gonna blame like the anime industry in general for things like this. Like if you like studios like can have good planning, good scheduling, good like work allocation, but obviously like that is like not commonplace.
Yeah.
like when I think about like Wonder Egg, like, and it's like follow up, like part of me like you said, like we should like separate like these things sometimes, but like to me it's kind of like a dissonance in like the vision more so, where I feel like, because like when I was watching, like I felt like so connected to like what the original creators like wanted to say and wanted to explore and wanted to like, you know, deconstruct, and like this was like not not where I was expecting it to go, not where I wanted it to end up, and not how I wanted it to be executed. And but like, you know, if I had to like be honest, like the cracks were like forming in like the first like in like the last like 2-ish episodes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I wanted to like remain hopeful, because like I feel like Wonder Egg, as like the 12 episode series it was very good. Was very good. Like, and like you said, I don't want to like, you know, take away from the merits that the show still has. It's just like one of those like really like unfortunate like products of like, I wouldn't even like say like this is like a product of like the sequelization process. Really, it's just that, like,
no, I don't think so either.
It's like it says it's a sequel, but it's really like this was like supposed to be like part of the original series, like you said. It's just like it's like a lot of people felt betrayed, myself included.
Yeah.
And like it's one of those things where it's just like if I said like, do I want more Wonder Egg like now, like in 2022, like more than like a year and a half after the fact, I would probably say no. I would say just like let it rest, you know.
Yeah, I agree.
It did a lot of good. It didn't turn out the way I wanted. I'm just going to like leave it at that. Like, I'm not begging for a sequel for the show as much as I like it now and liked it like when I was watching it.
I would more hope for
and that's okay
than a sequel at this point.
Yeah, I mean, and I think some people need to understand that is okay. And so like, you know, more hand in hand in that. Like, okay, this might be a really odd take. I actually don't think it's that odd, but some people look at me funny whenever I make this take. So when I watch a show, when I watch an anime show, or whenever I consume any other type of media and I hold it in really high regard, I am perfectly okay with it kind of just existing as it was and not being expanded upon, not being adapted into other formats. Like, we've seen this a lot with, you know, games getting turned into movies, right, and stuff like that, right? I'm okay with enjoying things as they are, and it not necessarily getting adapted into a different medium or you know, continuation if it doesn't need it, of course. Like, if it feels like it needs continuation, then by all means go for it. But I think that sometimes these shows don't need it. So sometimes these shows just don't need sequels at all. It might be cool to like kind of try to pander to people, but like, you run the risk of you know, if people that view it as a complete work, it can really like detract from the original experience in people's minds. But I was curious to get you guys' thoughts on that in general.
I like to see more shit, TBH.
I feel that.
I've always been like that, because like usually for me, like, it's like, why do I like a season or why do I like a show? It usually has a lot to do with characters and stuff. So it's like, okay, cool, I want to see more of these characters. I want to see more of these characters being fun, being whatever, blah blah blah. Like, it's just like, because like, especially with anime, it's like, you know, you watch anime for 3 months pretty much, you know, one episode a week for 3 months, and then you're kind of done with it from there. You don't like I remember Jeffrey with a Kebi the other day. Like when it ended, like just a couple seasons ago, it was like, oh my god, this show's over, and I'm probably never gonna like, you know, hear of it again. Pretty much. Like, this show's like done, and it's like, we're gonna forget about it. Well, not forget, but you know what I mean. Like, it's just gonna like move on.
I'm not gonna forget about the show. I love the show, dude.
Yeah.
I think for me, it can depend on whether or not I want to have more of something or not. Like, I definitely am a victim of the sunk cost fallacy. So like, if there's a long running show that starts deteriorating, I will like kind of continue to watch just to see how it ends. I think Naruto Shippuden for me was that.
Yeah.
And so when Boruto comes out to sequelize Naruto, because there was a strong cutoff point of, okay, well, this is the original series, this is the next one, I just said, all right, I'm out. I'm rejecting.
I watched like,
this is my chance. I'm out.
I watched like over 100 episodes of Boruto, and I was like, all right, it's over. I'm done. I don't need to waste any more time here.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want it to come off like, bro, I really hate it when anime gets sequels. That's not what I was trying to say. But I think I'm more okay with like, I don't know, maybe it's just like a comfortability in my mind that like I just don't really have super huge expectations for a lot of different things. Like there's a lot of great shows that in the past I would have hoped that they got some type of follow-up or something and they never did. And so like now I'm at the point where I'm just kind of not doing that to myself unless I'm like super into the show. But like, you know, it isn't always the case, but sometimes I feel like you know, I don't want to do it to myself. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to be like, man, like my whole life is contingent on this getting follow-up. I can't live without it. And then, you know, years and years.
My life is contingent on Awashi getting follow-up.
See,
Like, I don't even know how Awashi ends, and it needs to keep going. Like it's just like
Yeah. Just as a question for the class, now that we're talking about it, like, is there any like show like just like going down the line that like doesn't have a sequel, but you really want a sequel for? Like,
let me
go against like what I said, like where I don't really like beg for sequels. Like, there's definitely like a handful of shows where like, please continue. But does anybody want to start? If anyone, if not, then I'll just start.
That's so difficult.
Executioner was fun, but I don't know if I really want that. Like,
Which one?
Executioner.
Oh, right.
I think it'd be pretty valid for that show to have one, just because it's
I think so too.
not done.
Like, there's more stuff going on. It's just I don't know if I need it. Is the thing.
yo, when we're 35, Ano's gonna wake up and be like, I got another vision.
Another Evangelion.
No. We're not. That's something I just don't need ever again.
There you go. That's Dylan's answer. Ava. No more Ava.
No more.
Like
His
originally,
interpretation on the movies was.
Dude, but you never know. Ano's what, like 65? This guy's like in his 70s, might just wake up and be like, I got another vision.
True. Originally,
he's 62. Dude, this guy's dying. This guy's got time.
Originally it was Girls Last Tour.
I don't really know. Not sure.
But like the thing for me was that like Girls Last Tour was I think still it's weird because it's not like it wasn't finished. The manga went further than the anime did, but like I still felt it still felt like it was a complete experience, right? Where I was still very okay with how it ended, and I think its messages and everything still got across. And then I went back and read the manga. I read I went back and read. Bro, I don't think I could handle it being adapted. I like really don't think I would be able to. I don't think I would be able to do it if they actually adapted it. So I think I'll leave that one alone. But originally, I definitely felt that way about it, where I was like, man, if it's not finished, I definitely want to see it finished in anime format. But looking at what it did in its 12 episodes, I think it's like fine. I think it's fine where it is. It's like hard because like a lot of the shows that I'm really passionate about, and I think a lot of you will probably find this to be the case as well. A lot of the shows that I'm like really into and really passionate about, some of it is because of the merits of what they accomplish within their seasons, within their core size as well. So like, just because, you know, it's a 12 episode show, if there's something that I think it did really well, or if I think it still did a great job within the confines of that, I don't necessarily find myself begging for more. I'm not like holy shit, I like really need this to be. That being said, there's just so many shows that are good that could get continuation, I guess. But I'm not a super huge manga reader, so I don't have as much context.
I feel like for me, like it's hard to answer because of a weird stipulation in my brain where I'm like, all right, what would I really want a sequel for? And most of the things that I want sequels for are shows that I'm already expecting to get sequels. So like Chihaya Furu, I want Chihaya Furu season 4, of course, but there's already been 3 2-core seasons. So like in my brain, I'm not really like hammering at the idea. Like I'm just
Okay.
expecting it at this point. Like
Yeah,
I'm
it's just a
expecting
matter of
within the
time.
next like 3 or so years, Madhouse will be like, "Hey, we announced it," and I'll be like, oh, "Okay." Or like Ace of the Diamond, the next season will come out, and I'll be
I
like,
do want that.
"This
Yeah, I
is what
want
I
to
was."
Ace the Diamond.
Yeah. Okay.
I was like, "Yes, it's finally here." You know, I'm not craving to extend any story that I'm not already expecting the next season to exist for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get that. I think to answer your question, Jeffrey, just so I give a solid answer, the show that I would probably align with the most in that regard is Doro Hey Doro, because that is not done. that is not done at all, and I had a really good time watching it. But I don't think there's been like any information since it ended. So I don't really know what they're gonna do with that, or if they're gonna do anything at all with it. But it was a good watch.
Yeah, that's I definitely like resonate with that because like on the flip side of like what Bobby said, where like he kind of expects some things he wants sequels for to get sequels. I consider myself a victim of like I love things that I have no hope are gonna get sequels. And like similar to like what you said, the one that I would pick for a sequel that I really want to happen is Land of the Lustrous.
Oh yeah.
It's another fully CG show along with like Doro Hey Doro. I completely understand the reasons why the show has not continued. It's because like Studio Orange is working on it. They're currently working on like adapting Beastars, and the source material for Land of the Lustrous is like still continuing. And the points to like where like there would be like a solid cutoff are like not numerous, So the first I guess the only season of Land of the Lustrous in anime form like left with like kind of like a weird cutoff. To the point where like even if you like didn't read the source material, you knew there was more to come.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, come on, please just give it because like Land of the Lustrous is one of the few series that I keep up with in manga form. Man, I love this series so much. It's like one of like the most like crushing like downward spiral stories that I've ever like consumed. It's just like it makes me feel like so many like different emotions that like I would never experience in my daily life, and I love media that does that for me. And I really wanted to continue in anime form because I've spoken on this in some probably like in the cast in the past, but like both like Land of the Lustrous in manga form and in anime form are like so unique to their mediums.
Yeah.
Like in manga form, like Haruka Ichikawa, who's both the author and the illustrator, has this like just this like keen sense of like symmetry and like use of like the monochrome that manga is used for. It's such a unique experience, and likewise in the anime form, like it's all CG, but if we could pinpoint like the show where like CG really started to get good, it's Land of the Lustrous.
Yeah.
Like the concept of like having gems as the main characters like caters so well to using CG because of like how it can use lighting and how like it uses the dynamic camera in order to like capture the high octane like combat scenes. It's just like such like a good instance of utilizing something that is often seen as like a drawback in anime, and I think it's like very revolutionary in that regard. And I want it to continue, but I understand why it's not continuing. But man, one day when I'm like 40, maybe.
I do think that there are series that I want sequels for very extraneous reasons, I guess.
Okay. Let's hear it. Fuck it.
So Baby Steps is
okay.
So the thing about Baby Steps that it has 2 seasons. The reason it won't continue is because the source material won't continue. And the reason the source material won't continue is because the mangaka was told you can't take the story this way, so he just said, "Okay, I'm done."
Incredible.
That's Giga Chad. That's Giga Chad move. That's actually Giga Chad move.
Like, it never fucking happens.
Like, yeah, exactly.
I would like there to be a sequel for this anime because that would imply that the source material had continued. But that's not.
This is metagaming at its finest. Holy shit.
So another thing though that is a little more unfortunate. Welcome to the Ballroom, I think, is an anime I really want a sequel for, but it's very difficult because the source material for this, the mangaka for this, has extremely poor health.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot more of an unfortunate situation in which there is like a weird kind of pseudo space purgatory in which maybe this will eventually get a sequel, but the rate at which that will happen is completely unknown. If like it might not even get a sequel, like depending on what happens. And so it would be extremely unfortunate, but this is a series that I would love to continue just for the fact that that would mean that the author is healthy and is capable of, putting their vision on the paper again.
That's wholesome, bro. That's wholesome.
There's a lot more series that like fall under like this specific like circumstance than I would like want to experience. Like there's like 2 series that like didn't continue because the original creator, like the health was failing, which was like Recovery of an MMO Junkie and Somali and the Forest Spirit. Like both of those, like the original creator
Somali
was not able to continue making it, and thus like, all hope for sequels is like just out the window. So like it really sucks when this happens. Like I said, Somali is that way too, where original novel manga got canceled.
I think
it's a manga.
Novel. Oh, is it manga?
I think so.
I don't know. Let's see.
I thought it was novel.
Manga.
Oh, it is manga. Okay.
Yeah, canceled. So
I don't know. I don't know if I like necessarily want a sequel of it, but I know like the Keijo author also like had to like cancel it because his health was like failing.
Yeah,
I mean, just be healthy, man.
The most popular that I've seen, right, was people talked about this show a lot. High School of the Dead. Like it's funny because like this show is it's completely ridiculous, but because it's so ridiculous, it's one of the better like one of the like better turn off your brain ecchi shows, I think, honestly, because like it's just like most turn off your brain ecchi shows like try to take themselves seriously. And it's just like, okay, bro, you're just putting titties on my screen, bro. Like, what are you trying to? Who are you trying to fool? What are you doing? This show was like, all right, bro, it's zombies, so you're already like, okay, this is nonsense. And then we're just gonna throw titties and blood on everything. And I was like, you know what? Okay, I get it. I get it. But the original creator for this, I believe, passed away. So I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any chance for this ever getting more material than it already did. And this is a show that was very like it was talked about a lot. Like people were really I knew a lot of people that hadn't watched a ton of shows that loved High School of the Dead. And so
it's in the top 150 most popular.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
it hasn't been out for
it's been 12 years. 12 years ago. Yeah. So it is tough, man. Tough out here.
Mm-hmm. I think one show, or I guess one series franchise that I think has almost mastered the way that it wants to do its continuations, honestly, is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
I figured that'd come up eventually.
Yeah, me too.
Like, so JoJo's does something that is really cool in that it has 8 parts, going to be a 9th part. And in every single part, they change the protagonist, and the story and kind of the style of the series shifts in every single part while continuing the same bloodline of characters. And it's almost masterful in a way, because the reason that this happens is because the mangaka not Tetsuro Araki. I think he's another Araki. Well, the reason that Araki does that he's mentioned is that readers really hate it when you downscale a main character. When your main character gets weaker than they were, or they're able to do less than they previously were, viewers and audiences get really frustrated at that fact. And that's shown. There are numerous examples among plenty of shonen in which that's the case.
I think it's shonen.
Come on. I think that is like
that is like one of the most true statements of all time when we're talking about shonens. Like, absolutely, people get so fucking pissed. Like,
and so the way that Araki circumvents this is he geniusly decided, okay, well, what if I have this some epic battle, and then I just change the main character so that I can reset the universe and build up to something really cool again. And so I think it's genius that he decided to compartmentalize JoJo's into all of these very distinct feeling parts so that he can continue the same general timeline while also like continue to add on to the same world while also being able to just reset himself periodically. So that he can continue to write engaging and interesting stories without making the audience feel like they're being cheated out of something that should have been cooler.
Yeah, I mean, JoJo's is super unique in that regard. Like, I think it's really hard to do that. I think it's super hard to not only do this many parts, because JoJo's up to what? How many parts? 7, 8, 9?
8, and it's going to do a 9.
Start 9.
And I have never seen people argue about which part of a show is best more than JoJo's. Like, people have fucking ranking fights. They're like, nah, this one's definitely the best, second best, third best, and like everyone's order will be completely different. Like,
it's going to be completely different until we get to part 7. At that point, it's going to change. There's going to be a definitive.
I just want you to know you're doing the exact same thing.
There will be no debate.
Thank you for reaffirming my.
Years of discussion run out the window.
I appreciate you making my point. Thank you, friend. I appreciate you. Hey man, that's why he's one of the co-captains, bro. You gotta. But yeah, like they all are.
Like at one point, he just makes like the most stacked part you've ever seen, and it blows the rest of them out of the water.
But yeah, JoJo's is cool. I think JoJo's. I mean, it does a lot of things. I think, especially for its genre. But to be able to create this many distinct parts and all of them actually feel like they all have similar identity, in that like there are things that are similar thematically. Like all the main characters are literally have Joe in their name, right? Like. And so like there are commonalities between parts, but they all feel like very distinct and unique experiences. And I think that is something that's extremely hard to do, and something that the genre has struggled with over time. That I think a lot of people kind of get bored and they feel like the what is being brought to the table gets played out and stale. But JoJo's, because they choose to attack it in a different way, it feels like in some ways they're more resistant to that becoming a problem than some of the other competitors in genre. So I have a lot of appreciation for the show, even though I have not watched it all the way through. I have a lot of appreciations for what JoJo does for sure. You acting like a real JoJo fan. It'd be like that, bro. Like they all expose themselves eventually. They all...
Find me a closet JoJo's fan. Challenge.
True.
It's everyone. Everyone who hasn't seen it yet is just a closet JoJo.
God damn it, man. God damn it. So like here's a question that I asked myself before, and I don't know if there's actually a good answer to this, but is there a show that can we name shows that would have been, so like shows that have sequels but would have been better as a 2-core series and vice versa?
1000%. So I think Durarara was the most painful experience.
Yeah.
Oh god, I forgot.
Several cores. So Durarara, for those of you who don't know, this story has so many moving plot threads. There are several plot threads, like I think at most maybe 6 or 7 different plot lines that you need to be following simultaneously. And so when they get to the second season, it's fine. The third season gets a little funky because the third season is split up into 3 different cores. And so following the story in terms of in terms of a real life effect, in terms of being like a real life watcher of Durarara, I hated the experience of watching the the second and third last parts of the third season because I just couldn't follow what was happening.
That was a fucking weird sentence, dude. The second...
Oh, the second and third part of the third season.
It's like Attack on Titan, final season, part 3, the movie finale.
It's just so impossible for me to understand and keep up with what's happening without deciding, okay, I'm just gonna rewatch the whole series from beginning back up to this point.
That's a weird commitment, dude. You're weird. It's like, let me just start over. Like
it'd be like that.
I can't fairly tell if the story was good or bad because I just don't even understand what was going on anymore when I was like getting back into it. It's the same reason like Hunter x Hunter is impossible for me to read as a manga at the moment because the release schedule is so impossible to follow. I can't possibly like follow a story as complex as Durarara or Hunter x Hunter when the breaks in between content are so inconsistent and large that like it's not reasonable. I have to binge this content. It's the fact that it's being split is like so detrimental to my viewing experience.
I feel that. I definitely feel that. I mean, some shows are definitely better off binged. I think like most of us will probably agree that like most shows would be better watched all at once, just because like there are things that when you watch week to week you're gonna forget that happen just because there's just so much time and we're humans. But in some ways, I do think some shows have done a good job of not only utilizing, the week-to-week format, but also utilizing the time between its original and its sequel to like, create that build and that suspense and whatnot, and kind of build that anticipation, because that is a big thing when we're talking about like driving media sales and whatnot as well. Like word of mouth goes a long way. If everyone is like on board and super excited for the follow-up to whatever show, then whenever that does eventually drop, everyone's gonna have their eyes on it from day one, and I think that's a really big deal. But that's kind of metagaming in a way. That's more about industry stuff more so than like the show itself. It just be like that.
Yeah. Off the top of my head, I can't really like think of a show that like fits the question that you asked, where like I would prefer it as like a 2-core as opposed to like season 1 and season 2. But like thinking about it, like I think I actually like prefer most of the time for them to be like 2 distinct seasons. And the reason for that is because I feel like with like really like high quality sequels or sequels that I hold in high regard, is whenever they can like explore new things or like refine the strengths of what made the first season so good. And like just as an example of something that I think most of us have seen, but like March Comes In Like a Lion comes to mind. So like I love March Comes In Like a Lion. I think it's like one of like the most like heartfelt like stories of like picking yourself back up and like really like finding like newfound strength in things that you like previously had no idea like existed. But like the distinction between like season 1 and season 2 for me is that like season 1 of March Comes In Like a Lion is like the recovery period, like for the main character. He's like in a very, very deep depression. It's like disturbingly real, like how his current like mental state is depicted, courtesy of like the Shaft ways of doing that type of thing. But it is really like these like first 22 episodes where he starts out at like his lowest point that he's ever been, and then slowly, gradually, like as he like interacts with like more people, like the sisters and everybody that he faces in shogi, that he's slowly picking himself up. And then by the time we get to season 2, which aired a year after the original did, roughly, this is the point where like he's like standing on his own 2 feet, and he's actually like helping other people like through their problems. Like he helps he helps Hina through like her experiences as she's getting like bullied in school after she's like trying to protect one of her friends who eventually moved away. Like just to see that progression and to see like that growth, like to be like so distinct from like season 1 to season 2, like there's something special about that to me. Where like the show is like it's like still covering like the same themes of like finding like newfound strength whenever like you are like really like down in the abyss, and you feel like you're never going to recover. Just to see him just to see like all his efforts to like try to pick himself up and like better himself in so many ways just come to fruition. It's like I love that type of shit, and I think like that's a sign of like what I like kind of like look for when I'm looking for like good sequels. Like I'm not just looking for more of the same. I'm looking for like a series to like really build on itself and really like expand on its ideals like this.
Yeah.
Actually,
And
a currently airing show that follows through with that same idea is actually Love Live Superstar. Funny enough.
Okay.
So,
all right.
I think it's actually really good that Love Live Superstar is split up into 2 seasons because the first season of Love Live Superstar focuses on traditionally Love Live as a franchise has 9 characters that you need to focus on, 9 main characters. But you can see in the key art here, there's only 5 girls. And the reason for that is because the first season is specifically focusing on these 5 characters and developing these 5 characters. And so I think it's actually really strong that they decided to split the next 4 characters into season 2 because it allows for a lot more growth, which each of the individuals, rather than stretching themselves too thin, trying to do all 9 within a single season and then trying to do all 9 again in the second season. I actually think that this format really, really enhances the narrative and like just getting attached to the characters.
Yeah, they also do some things where it's like because you're introducing 4 new characters now as opposed to like all at once, you get some things you don't like see at all or can do with like the other seasons where they're all joining at one time, and so they're all training at one time. So with like the new 4 characters, it's like they're just now joining into like a group that's like already got like their whole regimen down. So to see kind of like that disparity between like the new people and like I guess I want to say like the current members is pretty cool to see.
Yeah, no, that's. I mean, I think idol shows in general will definitely be something that like it's a genre that really benefits from that because I mean most of our qualms with idol shows. A lot of the time it comes down to there's just too many like what's going on here, why are there so many of them at once? There's no way you could possibly grow each of these into fully fledged great characters in a 12 episode season. Like it's just not
dude. Okay, you say that Revy Starlight's not an idol show.
Okay,
Revy Starlight has 9 characters.
That's different though. That's different though.
Is how you're supposed to do it.
Those are not the same. Okay, all right, relax. These are not the same. But yeah, like, and that's why I think a lot of idol shows that we hold in higher regard are the shows that do a better job at like kind of breaking it up into like more palatable sizes, so that we're not overwhelmed with them just throwing shit at us all at once, because it can get real ugly.
This isn't exactly what you asked, but I just thought of it because I just remembered. As like Kids on the Slope, if that thing was more episodes, that shit would have been like amazing. Because like Kids on the Slope is like it's one of my favorite shows. Like, I still love it, but like it definitely is a long time to cover in. I think it's 12 episodes.
Yeah, it is 12 episodes.
Yeah, 12.
So severely needed like to be 24 episodes.
Yeah, dude, there was a lot of shit. There was a lot of years that got covered.
It was like all of high school, and then by the end they're like 30.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's very unfortunately. Well, I mean, like I guess it is a little bit better nowadays, where like the shows that kind of need more time, I get them a little bit more often than they used to. But like, unfortunately for this, like I don't think they're gonna go back in. I think
the thing with Kids on the Slope is that like it's still like a really great show, but like a sequel would not fix like the issues I have with like the pacing,
because it already happened.
To like the end,
We would need to redo it and make twice as many episodes.
Yes.
Yeah, like the show literally already happened. Like it's not, you can't do anything.
Yeah,
that's true.
We just wanted there to be more time in between.
One thing that
no, you're good.
So there's actually one other show that I wanted to bring up kind of badly today. It's called The World God Only Knows. So
I see.
This series, its sequelization was kind of strange. So the first 2 seasons, perfectly normal behavior, nothing unhinged here, absolutely fine. It's just the main character going through a bunch of girls. It's kind of like it's sort of like a harem parody sort of ish. But it's a fun ride. I really enjoy the main character. I really enjoy all the arcs that he goes through. But something strange happens going into the 3rd season. And if you're a manga reader of this show, you'll be fine. But if you watch
Holy.
this season in particular,
Holy Lord.
Is
it
this
gets a little
three?
funny. It gets a little funny. So as it turns out, if you're an anime only watcher going into this arc, you'll happen to not know who half of the characters are. Very strange. If you're a manga reader, you'll recognize that they skipped 100 chapters of the manga to go directly into this arc.
What the fuck?
Very unhinged behavior, I have to say.
What the fuck even is that?
I think that the reason they did this was because this was in the manga the most popular arc by far, for good reason. It is good. The problem is if you're an anime only watcher, what they do is they recap 100 chapters in a 5-minute clip show at the start of this season.
Oh god.
And it's just an impossible experience to really get the full brunt of like what is going on here. And I feel like the reason that this even happened in the first place is because I feel like Studio Manglobe, the people who made this, they're now a defunct studio. It's in my headcanon that they kind of were desperate to get money. They've done another few things. Hayate no Gotoku Cuties and like the previous version of Hayate no Gotoku, not direct sequels either. Those are actually based on a source material of adapting random things, random side stories from the manga that they were in. I think Manglobe kind of fell into this problem of they were desperate for some sort of success.
had no money.
That's tough.
They started with like Samurai Champloo.
Yeah.
They did Dead Man Wonderland. Fairly popular. After that, The World God Only Knows was the only real thing they had going for them, I guess.
Tough out here, man.
Wasn't enough. Because of how they handled it.
I just thought of another show that has multiple seasons that'll evoke a big reaction from Bobby. Blue Exorcist.
Oh,
Yay.
This show, like, so the first season did stuff, and then the second season happened, and it just decided, like, hey, forget what we said happened at the end of the first season. Just keep watching.
the first season of Blue Exorcist, the way it ends, it has an anime original ending. It like did a Full Metal Alchemist of like, okay, we can't adapt enough of the series because it's a monthly manga. It doesn't update fast enough for us to keep up. So we're just going to create our own anime only ending in which the main plot gets resolved and they kill Satan. You start season 2 and it picks up after the last canon content of the original source, and it's like, oh yeah, Satan's alive, and like we're just gonna do all this stuff with the characters. All that development that you got from the previous season didn't exist. We're just going back to the canon track. Absolutely awful. It doesn't make, if you don't read the manga, if you're an anime only watcher, it doesn't make sense. They literally beat the final boss. What do you mean he's still around?
That is pretty ballsy. Like, to just end the show and just decide, no, we didn't.
Fuck what we did, bro. Like
we didn't end it. Let's keep going. Like, fuck it.
Look at another show like that. I think, Bobby, you know, did you watch Home No Zero 2? Or...
I never finished. I saw like one episode and I was like, I have a bad feeling this will be bad, so I stopped.
I've been told they did some weird retcon stuff at the beginning of season 2 where they I think they had like a character that like got shot in the head and was like, oh yeah, that was like a twin that was like fake and they're still alive.
No, bro. Oh no.
The shock value actually affects the plot too much.
Sequels are so funny sometimes. Like,
yeah, they are.
There's sometimes pain if you're like that invested into the series. If like obviously like I don't see like Blue Exorcist as like that good as an anime only watcher, but obviously if you're a manga reader, Bobby will tell you like how good it is, and I believe everything he says about it. But like to me, like the thing with Blue Exorcist is just funny, but to Bobby, it's like mega pain.
It's awful, dude. This is like another series that like actually only progresses to become better like over time. It's one of those rare cases, and no one will know. No one will ever know.
Jesus Christ.
Wonderful.
You
All right.
You absolutely hate to see it, honestly.
Yeah.
All
right. Something that I wanted to like pivot to, and something I really wanted to cover before we end off the cast is like really talking about transformative sequels.
Okay.
So like, what is a transformative sequel compared to like everything else that we've like talked about? Where like these are the series or the works that like really like evolve the existing series by like innovating and like reimagining like the core themes of them in with drastically different execution than the original. And it's sometimes to the point where like these are the ones that really recontextualize the material that we've seen and come to know. We've already talked about like Monogatari. I would definitely like put that in this category, but the one that like comes to mind first is like Megalobox 2. Like this one. This is like such like a great instance of what I would consider like a transformative sequel. Now, a little bit of context behind Megalobox. The original was meant to be an anniversary project for Ashita no Joe. So it was a very like gritty series that like that sought to like pay homage to that old fashioned like underdog story. While keeping like the execution like pretty fresh. And it was a great show. Megalobox season 1, it did everything like it set out to do, which is why it was like so surprising when we got the news of Megalobox 2, which honestly, like thinking back on it, like we were like so skeptical when we like heard about like Megalobox 2 was happening. We're like, wait a minute, the story ended, you know, like Joe like won his fight, like he became the champion, like what is there like more to say? And like so like expectations going into this this new project were low, honestly. And I'm so pleasantly surprised on how this one turned out. Like we've all seen this show, like we all know like what's up, but just as like a brief overview, like this really like takes like the direction of like Joe's life and something we never really expected. Like he was like once like fulfilled and confident, like after like winning the championship, like he made a name for himself, and this series opens up with him like really like losing himself in a disturbingly like real depression that's like perpetuated by like drug addiction, and he's really like trying to like find himself again. And like compared to like the first one, which was lovingly carried by the fact that it was like a classic underdog story and had like really great action and animation, the themes that are like covered in this sequel are like extremely like mature and layered, you know. Like there's like finding like strength in like shared culture with like when Joe like meets Chief and his people, and through his experiences with like characters like both old and new, like he discovers like a new hope for redemption to really like reconcile with the people that he wronged and the people like he like ended up like disconnecting with for like a few years. And it's really something that we never really expected the series to be, but like and it's so different from season 1 that you would think that like people would really be like have a gut reaction like this is like not Megalobox, but to us like this is really like something special. Like what do you guys think when you think of this series?
It is a pretty dramatic tonal shift. Definitely will give some people whiplash, I think, in terms of like where they decided to take the way that the story is told, and it's completely different, I think, thematically from the first season, and like that is a risk. That's a big risk to take whenever you decide to, okay, we're gonna take it in a new direction, because like I said before, like people associate thematic presence with the identity of the shows themselves, and so like you always risk making those people uncomfortable, or maybe it doesn't ring the same bells for them as it did before. That being said, I do think it really contributes to this series being a more complete experience. And while I did not expect for it to go in this direction at all, looking back, having completed it, I'm very glad that it did, because this is one of the shows that I think the sequel is actually better than the original in a few different ways.
And it's better being like completely different.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like it's not like it just did what the original did, but better. It took a completely different direction and still managed to execute to a very high degree of success, I would say.
It's like really cool, like because like so Joe is like junk dog in the first one, and season 2 he's like no bad. It like literally feels like completely different, like Joe pretty much. A different show, different everything, whole different feel. And it was like with that show, like starting with the very first episode, I was like, oh shit, this is dope. But I remember thinking at the end of the first season was like, it was like whatever, like wasn't good, it wasn't bad, it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't particularly great. And I was like, oh, this is like a weird thing that we're doing here, but whatever. I guess I'll just watch it, just 'cause I already watched the first season. And the first season, it just starts off with a bang, where it's like, holy shit,
Yeah.
we're doing something hella different, but it's hella cool
Yeah.
so far.
There was like no like ease into like what we thought we were in for. Like it just happened. Like obviously like we get like flashbacks to like what happened, but like the episode 1 literally starts out with like Joe like in this depressive state. Like what happened? Like and like I can't like stress like how rare it is, because like as we said before, like people are really like averse to change. Like
Yeah.
and I don't think like that's a bad thing, but like I think it's like really like what's the word for it? Like special whenever like people like really like see this change as like a good thing, you know? Just because like anything that like goes against like the status quo that we're used to, like we see as like a threat to like our like preconceived like expectations. Is like for something like Megalobox season 2 to like really like break that stigma is like it's something that I love talking about, you know?
Yeah, and bro, this season that it existed in for sequels was pretty fucking nuts, if you guys remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was Megalobox, I think Zombieland 2 was this season, and I think Moriarty 2 was also this season. Is like actually like so what the hell? what the hell is going on all at once? Usually whenever seasons are filled with sequels, I'm like, wow, dude, it's gonna be sequels to shit that I don't care about at all. This is like the one season that was like, I actually had 3 follow-up seasons to things that I actually wanted to watch. So I remember this season very vividly. And yeah, this was definitely a super standout amongst the rest. Like not even just among sequels, but amongst shows that season. This is definitely one of the better ones in general.
Sure.
So it was definitely the series is better off having it be this way than taking it a more carbon copy route. Good.
In like a world where they built like this things about like, you know, cyber future boxing, whatever, where, you know, you got like you're not it's not just you boxing, it's like you have the gear that you also have. And it's like they did like a really human thing. It's like, okay, this guy's addicted to painkillers, obviously it hurts, you know. So it's like it's just like taking like this drugs, like it's like a super real thing in like sports, like physical combat sports, especially boxing. Wrestlers deal with it too at times.
Trauma recovery, these are all like very, very strong thematic premises. Like I mean it's just really cool. It's really cool because a lot of us, like, even though it's anime, right, we don't have that point of relation to like even real life athletes, like what they go through you know, after the fact, like after they retire, or even like while they're still like while their careers are still going. So it's something that really humanizes the characters, because they are people that are like
side of the ring.
okay. they're literally putting on these fucking mechs and punching each other in the mouth, and it's like, okay, I can't really relate to this, but I can relate to the struggles that the character had to go through as a result, and you know, throughout his journey. And I've dealt with people in my life that have had to go through like drug problems and stuff like that. It's like I can really like I can see why this would be such a big issue, and something that's a huge obstacle for him to overcome. So definitely a really cool, like I said, completely unexpected. I did not think this is where Megalobox 2 was gonna go. I had no fucking clue whatsoever.
I'm glad it did though.
Yeah,
like literally, I thought it was gonna be like, oh, Megalomania 2.
Yeah, I thought so too. Yeah, because I mean we're so used to seeing shows.
Megalonia, whatever the fuck it's called.
Yeah, whatever. I said Megalovania. The Undertale fans are about to they're about to get us, bro. But so here's a question for you guys. So what do you think sets apart when a show needs a sequel series? So like in anime, let's say we have a 12 episode show, and you want a sequel series, and it's, you know, whether it's 12 episodes or 25, or when it's something like film content would be enough to satisfy what you think the show needs. Is there like something in your mind that sets apart, like, oh, this needs a follow-up season, or this needs some type of movie content? Do you have a preference? Like what where do you guys stand on that?
I love follow-up anime films. That's
Mhm.
just like how I am. Like
Mhm.
I think because like, and the reason for that is that I think like these like transformative works that I described like come in the form of films most often.
Mhm.
Um, sorry to like be the only one to like speak up on that, but
You're fine.
like the one of the things I really wanted to talk about like in the sequel episode was the disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya, which
Mhm.
is one of the, in my opinion, like my go-to like instance of like this is a transformative anime sequel.
Insane.
Yeah, like so like the brief synopsis of like what this is that like first of all like it's like parent series like the Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya was a TV series that really like established like a lot of the standards for the slice of life genre. I won't like speak too much on it. Just know that it's like very charming, like very lighthearted.
Very nice.
I still love it to this day. It's probably like my most nostalgic series, and I love sharing it with other people whenever I can.
Mhm.
But the disappearance of ours.
Look at the three scores. Look at how different those three scores are.
For that.
That shit is
There's a
so
reason
funny,
for
bro. I'm sorry. That shit was funny as hell. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's a divisive one.
No,
Bringing
you're
it
fine. You're
back.
fine. You're
Bringing it
fine. You're
back.
fine. You're fine.
But the disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya is the direct follow-up to the TV series, and this is something that drops the lighthearted nature of the series almost completely. Like the like in an instant, like the status, like the forces that maintain like the status quo, like the unique and eccentric like aura of the original series, like just drops, like it's gone. And I'm gonna do this the best as I can without like getting too like deep into like the specific plot details. But the main character Kyon like is really like has to like ponder like how like the sudden shifts in his life now that certain things are like no longer in place, and like he has to handle like the loss of these things, and he really realizes like what the things that he took for granted like in the original series. It's really like staggering. It's shockingly mature, and it's like devastatingly raw is how I would describe it. He is just like left to his own devices to really like figure out like what everything like meant to him. And like this is one of the things that I love about sequels, is the things that like really recontextualize what you have seen in the series prior. Because like going from like Haruhi the TV series to Haruhi the movie is like one of the best experiences that I've ever had in the medium, like without exaggeration. And like the reason for that is because like man, like I already loved the series, but after watching the movie, the series, like the things that happen like just like carry new meaning, and that's why I enjoy like rewatching the series like as many times as I've done, like it paints a completely new picture for the characters that like we thought we knew everything about, and like going back to the TV series, you can kind of see the little hints and the little details that like implied things that were going to happen like in the movie, and vice versa. It's like a two-way street where like, oh, these things were hinted at early on and we saw them follow through, and likewise if you didn't see them before in the TV series, after watching the movie you saw them, and like that type of like realization is just like it's something that like I really adore about this medium. It's something I wish more people have experienced, because like this is like definitely like not like it's not like 90s, but basically like early 2000s is essentially what people think 90s is now. Like it's definitely old. I wouldn't even say it's dated, because I think it's held up like really well, but it's something that not everybody nowadays has experienced. Like the people who came in to anime like through things like Attack on Titan probably like don't know what the series is. And to me it's like one of the things that like I think if you're like going to be like very invested in this medium long term, you should like experience Haruhi Suzumiya,
I got a question for Dylan in particular.
Yes.
Is he there? Okay.
Yes.
Do you think that, because we know that you're the fate guy, man. All right.
Yeah.
And so do you think that the Heaven's Feel series, right? I don't know how many of them there are. How many Heaven's Feels are there?
Three
There's
movies.
three Heaven's Feels. Okay. Do you think that Heaven's Feel could have only been done in film format? Do you think it could have been done as a series and have been fine on its own merits? Or do you think it really only lended itself to film format?
Depends. Like it's like how much of like Nasu's world building do you want stuck in like in your series, because it gets really dry sometimes. And so I think like for like the casual watcher, it's definitely better for like a movie format. Especially like considering like it's ufotable and like now they have more money to play with. Considering, but like there's a lot. If you're like a visual novel reader, I think you would definitely have been like better off with like a series. But for like everybody else, it would have been like movie format, because there's a lot of like explanations and world building that like low down times in like Heaven's Feel that like you don't see, that I think a lot of people would probably just kind of get bored with.
I feel that.
It's so funny because like people who don't know, like in the first like Heaven's Feel film, they actually deliberately skip over a lot of the explanation stuff and like the world building stuff to get to like where you really want to be.
To get to where you came here for.
It's kind of funny how it works. It did you to like know what fate is by the time you watched Heaven's Feel, you know?
Fate is really unique in that aspect because they did Fate Stay Night technically 3 times, right? Like Dean's Day Night, Unlimited Blade Works, and Heaven's Feel. So like by the time you're watching Heaven's Feel, you kind of don't even need that part because you should already get the gist of it by watching the other routes that existed. Which is, I don't even know if you would be able to, like, is that I don't know, like reimagine? Is a different route a sequel? Like,
no. So the way it is, it's like you're supposed to watch it in like a sequential order. You're supposed to go from Fate to Blade Works to Heaven's Feel, because it's ultimately a progression of what Shiro becomes over the course of every route, and it's like an exploration of like his ideals, what he thinks, how he's going to accomplish said things, or abandon them in like Heaven's Feel in said case. And so it's kind of hard to describe it. I don't necessarily think they're sequels. It's just like a very large package.
So would you say that you need to appreciate it in its totality, not like by the specific route?
Yes, like we can go back and forth like which routes like have like the better themes, or like which ones executed better, but like in its totality, I think you're supposed to like review it all as like one whole product rather than just the routes by themselves.
Visual novels are harder to. It's really hard. It's much harder to have conversations like this with visual novels because they, by nature, are like segmented.
It's like really. I just think like adapting Fate to like a visual type deal is like, I don't want to say impossible, but it's so very difficult because you have to cut out like a whole bunch of monologues, and kind of like I said, like the kind of more slice of life scenes that like it helps build the characters like in the visual novel, but like you cut them because it's like kind of a waste of time in like in a format where like you need to have like a 26, you need to cram everything into like 26 episodes or so.
Yeah, like I mean, going off visual novel stuff like Higurashi is like
it's my problem with Clannad. Like they had like 50 episodes of like Clannad and After Story, and it just, I think they compressed what was like a very, very, very long visual novel into like 50 episodes. Like I think it's like, I'm not sure if like the original visual novel was like 70 hours or something like that, but like they compressed it down, and like it feels, I don't want to say rushed, but like it just doesn't feel complete.
Do you guys think that there's a point of no return when it comes to switching from traditional TV format to film? Because that's like something that I've pondered before. So like in my mind, right, with Abyss, right, I went through this thought process of, I watched the original 13, completely blown away. Movie came out, had no idea what to expect, completely blown away. And in between of the movie and the second season, I was like, I mean, well, we just came off of like crazy good movie content. Is it okay for them to go back to the week to week, TV format? Because there are different set of expectations, I think, for films, as opposed to show content.
I think the trend is actually, like, this is not saying whether it's good or bad, but I actually think what you're asking is even more important now than it has ever been, because it's actually becoming the trend for anime series to have canonized movie content very frequently now. Like Dragon Ball Super did it with Resurrection F and whatnot.
Yep.
Demon Slayer did it with Mugen Train. Jujutsu Kaisen technically had a prequel,
yeah,
but I think it's definitely trending in the favor of, we have an established series that generates hype, and then we sell a movie that destroys the box office, and we go back to series again. It seems to be what a lot of really large series are doing now.
I think like they just saw like Demon Slayer do it, and like, oh shit, wait, we can do that and make money. Like I think that's just what it was. And like movies are like so accessible, like they're so easy. Like it's just like everyone's got an hour and a half, because anime movies usually aren't long.
Yeah,
unless it's disappearance.
Yeah, I don't think there's an established like best way to do it. Like Bobby said, like this is like becoming like more commonplace, where like it's okay to have like more TV content after the movies. Like you mentioned, like Made in Abyss as well. My favorite series, Sound Euphonium, literally does this, where the first year is 2 seasons of TV anime. The entire second year is going to be movie content, split up between like 2 theatrical movies and a theatrical OVA, which we're getting in 2023. And it's confirmed to go back to TV anime in 2024 for the last year. And I don't want to like say like my like perception is like perpetuated by like my bias because my favorite series does it, but I do think that like it, like, because they're different mediums, like they have like different merits and different strengths and different weaknesses. And the way like those strengths and weaknesses like shape the series, I feel like is very like intriguing to me. And I don't want to like discount like the like inserting like movies like in the middle and having them like run their course and then going back like a return to form, because like I think like something like Made in Abyss is doing a really great job with like handling like an in-between like movie, because like Made in Abyss, like Down to the Deep Soul, like I feel is like one of those like really transformative experiences where it's like, from the beginning from like the TV series in season 1, like we got this idea that there was this spectrum of like things that like are derived from like humanity's desire to like discover new things and accomplish the things that we dream of. And there's a very fine line between like the innocence of like the main characters and like the ambitions of the antagonists, and that like darker side of the spectrum is explored in the movie. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way than a movie, but I also wanted more of the series because I knew the journey was not over. And I see like Made in Abyss season 2 as more of like that return to form. Like, okay, we experienced like something that was like really, really amazing, something that like I think would be like irreplicable if it was like a TV anime, and now we are returning to form for content that is, better suited for TV anime, like something that like we have to cover multiple things, things that we need to like segment here and there, giving time to a lot of different characters. So yeah, like that's like my thoughts on that. I don't think there's really anything wrong with that.
I think they might do it again. I think they might do it again. Like I've been thinking it ever since we hit Ep 6, because like I mean it doesn't there's not really like I wouldn't call it a pacing issue, but there's just so much to the story, right? And so like, we're getting into like episode 9, episode 10, and like the experiences that our characters are going through are very valuable, very thought-provoking. It's not really wasting any time or anything like that. All of it is like essential, but I still feel like there's so much more, and so they might do another movie. You know what I mean? Like that.
I would be down.
Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna finish with like all the contents of this arc before episode 12, more or less.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I don't know, bro. It's movies are sick. Movies are sick. The only thing that really sucks for us, the only thing that sucks for us is that we have to wait so long for them to get localized. That definitely feels bad. As an anime watcher, we've all had to sit and wait for things to be translated.
I think as a connoisseur, the movies are generally going to be a preferred format, but I think as a fan, the weekly format in a series is a lot more palatable.
Yeah, okay. I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, TV is definitely more readily accessible than movies ever will be, even in this day and age.
Showing week by week.
Yeah, like even though there's sometimes there are anime movies shown in American theaters, but it's never all the theaters. It's always like very specific ones, and they usually have limited like run times as well. So like you have to like
if you're not Demon Slayer, you're hoping for a 1 day, maybe 2 day show.
Yeah. I had 1 day, 6 p.m. on a Tuesday to watch Shirabako. I'm like, what the fuck, dude?
I was gonna go see Abyss in theaters, but it was COVID, bro. I was like, well, bro. I'm not going to a theater in COVID time, so you got me fucked up.
I ain't gonna lie, I like risked it all during like peak COVID to go watch Heaven's Feel 3.
He's like, you know what? I'm putting it on the line, bro. I'm putting it on the line, bro. I actually. Like there's just like so many weird formats that shows can take, right? They can go the movie route. Like I wanted to talk about this briefly because this is so weird, right? The soundtrack that you guys are listening to today is from Ancient Magus Bride, and looking back at the series, it's a very odd route that they took, right? Because it started with OVAs. It started with 3 OVAs, and then it was a decent amount of time before the actual 25 episode series released, and then we got nothing for a really long time, and now they're like, I don't know what to call these. Are these OVAs? I guess they are. They're OVAs, but they release one per like, I think it's like one every 3 months or some shit. I don't know what's going on.
Maybe like is what they call it.
I don't know. I actually don't know what's happening. 2 of the 3. I mean, the third one comes out in 10 days. And so like at the end of that, I gotta wonder, like, are they gonna try to keep going? I just don't. It's so weird. I've never seen a show do that before. To start with OVAs, go to TV, and then go to this really weird, like, segmented, spread out OVA format. I just don't. I don't think I've ever gone through that before. But I'm just sitting
Monogatari fan, all I can tell you is sometimes anime takes really, really strange paths. Because they cut off the end of second season to just make it its own thing, which they released online. They like made Tsukimonogatari in a batch of like 4 episodes and just threw it out there and said, "Here, take this." And I was like, "Okay."
They made the kids movies to watch whenever you want.
Yeah.
Wasn't like the original run, like they cut it off at episode 12, but we still had like Neko.
Oh yeah.
Oh, not even just Neko.
No,
the run was like 12, and then they had 3 more episodes that you had to get through a Blu-ray, and then they released Neko as a separate OVA.
Jesus Christ. Who makes this shit?
I think like, what was it, like the setup to Owari or like Owari 2 was like 3 episodes and they were all like an hour long or something.
Yeah, as it turns out, Monogatari's release was not only full of avant-garde artists, but avant-garde producers as well.
Wonderful. I'm sure we're all better people having gone through it.
I remember like so.
3 movies. There's also 3 movies.
I mean, the bright side of that is that the quality is on their schedule, not some weekly broadcast. So I mean, maybe it was for the best actually, but just looking back on it and what I had to go through to consume the series as it was running, very, very strange.
So this is like a random thought I've had, or I've always had it, but this is a time to bring it up. And this is a good question for Bobby, since you watch a lot of sports anime. And like, why is it that like so many sports anime just always get like multiple things, or like 2 cores and then like a bunch of other stuff? It's like you got like Kuroko, Haikyuu, Baby Steps, Prince Tennis got a lot of content. Yo Mushipedal gets a lot of content, including like movies. Like
I mean, I think the answer's simple.
is it just because people like them?
Superior form of shonen.
Yeah,
I think as somebody who doesn't watch a lot of sports shows, I think the answer to that is just because most of it takes place in high school, and the progression of a high school journey is like very clear, like 3 years. Like I think like that's it. Like, and the same for something like that's like sort of a sports show, but not really. Something like Sound Euphonium is like 3 years as well. You know, like there's like an expectation that there will be more beyond the first year. You know, there's the second year, the third year when you graduate. And that type of like these types of shows like lend very well to expected sequels, you know.
Yeah, I mean, how many anime season 2 start off with like high school setting and like the main characters are like, oh wow, we're wearing winter clothes now.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
I mean, it also like like an overwhelming majority of settings in anime are high school, so like I think that just goes hand in hand as well, right?
I know. But for like sports in particular, like there is like a journey involved with that. It's not just like, oh, I'm going through school, like I'm taking like tests and everything to get into college. Like with sports, there's a very like distinct like activity that you can like demonstrate growth of character through. And that lends very well to multiple seasons and follow-ups.
I think the theme of seniority is very powerful in sports shows for sure. Like,
yeah, the senpais are like 2 years older, and they're treated like gods.
Like, yeah, this guy's a superhuman.
I kind of think that the general trend nowadays is to not have like long blocks of episodes, but to like have like long-running stuff. But I also think that like one of the reasons that sports anime are able to last so long on average is just because they're so incredibly easy to make marketable. Like you can just buy jerseys of your favorite players. You can like, and then they have everything else like on top of that. That's like really simple, and it like matches the demographic because like guys will want to buy the Haikyuu Karasuno jacket. You know, people want to wear like the same jerseys as like their favorite Kuroko players. Like people will just like it's so marketable. It's really easy to compartmentalize. Like the formula for all of this stuff, I feel like is just so.
You also attract like the Fujo gang.
Oh yeah,
that's a big market. Hey, that's a big market.
They're huge in sports anime. Guys sweating on each other. Oh.
I mean, he's not wrong.
Naturally.
It's true. I'm just speaking.
He's
the
not
truth.
wrong. No, he's not wrong. You know, I've definitely had my fair share of friends who happen to be girls who gush about free. And I'm like, all right.
Incredible how this market has like developed over the years, where we went from like Hitalia to like Black Butler to now it's just sports shows.
I forgot about Black Butler. I forgot that was the thing.
Did any of you guys watch Black Butler? I did. It was like,
no, I did not.
Nah, I didn't.
I don't remember how I started watching that. I was a kid. I was like, oh, this show. I heard it's good. I was watching it.
I think it's a Netflix show.
TV show.
I think it's a Netflix show now, so it's like one of those shows that like oddly a good amount of people have seen. Because there's a lot of people that watch Netflix, like watch anime on Netflix that just like click, you know, what's the next show that's on here.
It is kind of funny that the wave of like shows that we watch to get us into anime has just like passed on already. Like it's like we moved on because now it's like Demon Slayer, Attack on Titan. Like people still watch like the stuff that we did, but usually it comes after.
I wouldn't even say it comes after. I just think that the shows that like are deemed like gatekeeper shows like are different, but also like more numerous. You know?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess that.
I mean, like, I think it's true to say that the number of accessible anime can only increase, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
For sure. Yeah, man, it's a weird question, man. It's
been a long time since we thought about that type of thing, you know?
Yeah, that is.
So we're so far like removed from our first anime.
Yeah.
Like where would you put a show like Chihaya Furu and Bakuman? Because I definitely remember when I was a teenager, like seeing those shows as like a thing that people would talk about, like in that like next level to like get into. But I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk.
Bakuman inherently, you need to like have like I don't know, understanding of how shonen work to like appreciate Bakuman. It's kind of like Shirobako in that sense. Chihaya
It's like
Furu
a meta
definitely.
show.
I feel like it's not so deep in anime enough that maybe you could get into it, but it's like you're also learning about some weird obscure Japanese card game, so you'd have to like, you know, I don't know, like I guess that is another level from.
But I feel like this is like those shows like now are more removed from like the prototypical fan. But when I was in high school, I definitely remember just looking up good anime on Google and seeing shows like that.
Well, do you think it's maybe just like
That's how you guys got anime too. But good anime.
That's funny as shit.
If I look good anime right now to watch, then like I'm going to get like Spy X Family because it aired like last season. It's getting a new season soon, right?
Let's
Do you
type
think
it in
maybe
right now.
just the time frame you looked it up.
I don't know. What year did Bakuman come out? I don't remember.
Anime to
He's doing
watch.
it. He's
He's
finding
doing it right now.
Let's see.
Okay, JoJo's, Titan, Jujutsu Kaisen, their Spy X Family, Demon Slayer,
Yeah, it's all recency.
My Hero,
bias.
yeah.
Made Abyss. Let's
I
go.
mean, Abyss is 2017. Wow, I'm surprised to see that in there actually.
Well, I mean, just because like the sequel's coming
It
out.
also
Yeah, I
like
mean,
just
that makes sense.
catering to Khalil.
Top picks for me. None of this is true though. That's how you know they're wrong. None of this.
It's
None of
separated by genre though, so.
none of this is
Okay,
true. I don't
yeah, but
like
look at
any of
Death
this
Note.
shit.
See, like Death Note's like still there, and that's like an old 2006.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but that's like everybody knows Death Note. is the thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Like
but
you-
if these are top picks for Khalil, well, clearly Google doesn't work good.
Yeah,
with
this
that.
is not.
That's
This
what
is
they
not
pick.
true.
I would imagine popular anime are pretty similar for most people.
Bro, Dragon Ball Evolution is here. What
Bro.
the fuck?
You are a Dragon Ball fighter streamer, so maybe that's it.
Bro, if they're that deep into the algorithm, I love how this doesn't even have a cover. By the way, it just says "Kill the Kill" in black letters. Until you hover over it, that shit is hilarious.
Teen Titans is now officially an anime.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. What year was Bakuman? Was it 2012?
around there, I think.
Oh, it was like I think it was like 20, like
And Chihaya Furu, is that 2012 too?
I feel like that was 2013, but maybe I'm wrong.
2010.
But there were multiple
2010
seasons
Bakuman.
of this show, right? So it was.
Oh,
over the course of
2010. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this show's based
A lot of-
as well,
a lot-
and it
a lot
has
of
sequels.
content.
There you go.
A
Yeah,
lot
this
of
show's
sequel
based and
content.
has sequels.
I mean, this is all we can really hope for, right? Is that the good shows get continuation, and the bad ones.
This show also spans like 10 years.
Oh, like it took a long time between.
Yeah,
and
like
like 70 something episodes.
it's 75 episodes, and
Oh,
they
wow.
start off 14, and they end like 24.
I see. That's actually cool. I feel like not a lot of shows actually do stuff like that.
My favorite show like that is Rakugo Shinju. It's literally like the dude like starts off as a kid and then that series ends on his deathbed. I'm like, bro, that's what's up.
That is
That's a
that
full
is
story.
fucking cohesive
That's a
completion.
full
Yeah,
ass story.
that is a whole ass story.
It could be recency stuff. I don't know. Like it could be that. That's why. I don't know. I still don't know where Chihaya Furu lies in like the level of anime watcher.
I think it's like pretty easy to watch, even if you're like a
So
beginner.
do I.
Like the biggest thing the biggest thing you're gonna have to get over is that if you're like watching as somebody who lives in the West, like you're being introduced to something that is very Japanese as like the focal point. But then after that, it's like a normal like kind of sports show, you know?
Okay. Well, to close out, the last question I want to ask is there anything airing this season that you guys feel like you would want follow-up
Awashi.
to? I mean, well, I mean, relax, bro. Like, we already know. I get it. All right, I get it. But you at least have Blue Lock next season, so like even
Sure.
so I think you'll be okay either way. But there's actually a decent amount of good stuff this season. But I'm wondering, is there anything you guys' minds like? Damn, I would actually be quite okay with more of this. Going
I'd be okay with more Yakuza just because like I feel like this is like a simple thing
yeah.
to do,
Mhm.
and if you just give me like a new episode where they're just being sweet and wholesome, it's like whatever. Like that works
That's
for me.
true.
I
That's
need
true.
to see where Liko Rico ends, but
Okay.
I'd definitely be down for season 2 if they.
I don't know about that. Like, I'll give like two answers. One I think I don't want a sequel to, and one that I think I do. Like
Okay.
the way like Rico Rico is like progressing. Like if they like really nail the ending, I'm not sure if I want more of that. It's one of those series where I feel like it said everything it wanted to say and then it ended at a good point. Hopefully, opium, you know.
Yeah, like I haven't seen the latest episode, but the way it's going, like I think they're gonna conclude, and if they conclude it well enough, I'll be fine with it.
Yeah. One that I think I would want more of is Call of the Night, because I think there's a lot that they can still do with like how they're approaching like the themes that they're exploring. It seems like there's a lot of characters that we still haven't met yet. And like, the way that the show uses its characters to me is like very intriguing, because like after like every character is like introduced, like they kind of like represent this like unique viewpoint that gets integrated into the show, and I think that's very cool, and that would like lend more to like, oh, if there was like more content, we can do more of this and expand upon what we were already covering in this season.
Yeah, Ep7, I watched it and I was like, there's like a lot more to this then, if that's what if this is the route that they're going, then there's like a lot more things that we can learn about, because like I think Ep7 is where we learn that there's other vampires, right? And it was like, oh, well, this is okay. This is the whole thing that they have going on here. What the fuck?
Yeah, that's what I want more of, if there was.
I think for me, I'm just gonna say I would want more Ruby, because more Shaft and more Geno Ruby is definitely something that I will consume.
No, see, he needs to start working on part 4. Movie 4, so no, we can't have more Ruby.
Okay.
Bro, Ganon's really that guy.
He's a hot commodity out here.
Bro. Ruby's getting so crazy, bro. I'm just like, holy fuck.
It's crazy. I don't want to spoiler it, but
yeah, don't spoil it. I haven't watched the latest episode yet, but it's already getting.
I guess like in terms of sequels, I like that already have sequels that I want another sequel of, obviously Shadow's House 2, but I desperately need Rent a Girlfriend to catch up and see all the anime watchers.
Bro.
Oh my, he's meta, bro.
Bro, what is wrong with you?
So meta.
Once you get to the point where everybody was freaking out about in the manga.
Into the show, just go down the drain. We need to get to chapter 218. All right.
That feel when someone is asking for a second season specifically because it's bad. Very impressive. These are the levels.
Most Dylan answer I've ever heard in my life.
He says, "I want this series to crash and burn, and I want everybody to see it."
It's the most malicious intent I've detected in a long time, my friend.
That's OD, bro.
It's not that I want these people to suffer. It's just I need as many people to experience the unhinged disaster the latest chapters have become.
It's a smoldering dumpster.
You're really a hateful person, bro. You're absolutely a hateful person, man.
No. Honestly, when we were asking about like what there was like a sequel I really wanted, I very much considered I want the return of Infinite Stratos.
What?
Wow. What is happening? What is going on?
I'm tired of bad isekai adaptations. I need the return of bad light novel battle harem school adaptations, because they're all bad, but they're all bad in like kind of like varying interesting ways which are all funny in some way.
The isekai is too predictably bad.
There's too much predictability. You can tell where things are going with isekais, right? Like most of the time, it's just like a power fantasy with these light novels or like these battle harem light novels. It's like, oh yeah, it's like magic, but also we have giant mechs because yes.
We gotta cut this stream, man.
Yeah, no, it's getting out of hand.
Dylan's going to places where none of us want to go.
Which one? So the actual last question: which one of these sequels in fall are you guys most looking forward to? Because there's a lot. There's a lot.
I mean, like I feel like the obvious answer is Spy Family.
Yeah, but I think like a lot of people like Mob Psycho
3.
Mob Psycho 3 is pretty good, actually.
For Mob Psycho, because
I never saw 2. I probably should.
We never mentioned like Mob Psycho 2 in this cast yet, but like it is like one of those like really great sequels.
Bro, Mob Psycho 2 is why everyone's excited for 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not.
That is how it works. Yes.
I don't know. I'm not sure if it counts as a sequel, but I am looking forward to the Slam Dunk movie.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
That's not till December though.
That's tough.
Yeah, but still.
That's
Oh
tough.
yeah.
It's coming.
No, it still counts. It still counts.
Wait, there's a Pop Team Epic 2?
Yeah. You
Yeah.
didn't see that?
Yo!
Yeah, they're
That
going
one.
crazy. Yeah.
That's your answer.
Yeah. No, that's. I mean, there's a lot next season. Like, I was surprised how much follow-up content there is next season. I was like, holy shit, man, what's going
Oh,
on?
you're a Moshi Pedal?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
we talked about this before you got into call. Yeah, Mub
Oh
Love
my
Alternative.
God.
Like, what the fuck is
Dude.
happening?
He's like, yo, pedal
Dude,
to the metal.
Yo,
baby.
Mushi Pedal Limit Break. What a name.
Yeah,
Uh,
like at this point, like we pretty much know Spike's Family 2 is gonna be good. I think at this point, like I think our expectations have been pretty met with that show. I think they'll do a great job. Mob Psycho 3, after you watch 2, it's like you just kind of know. You just kind of know. But this show, right, it's kind of different, right?
I was gonna
Oh,
talk about
yeah.
that one because like I'm looking forward to seeing it just because like I don't know, it was a little bit disappointing the show, but like the show
Yeah.
itself is still cool. So it's just kind of like I want to see if you can fix maybe some of the stuff you probably didn't execute that well, and then while still being kind of cool.
Yeah, it's like,
But like, I don't know my expectations on that, but I'm looking forward to seeing what it's gonna be.
Like, 2 Year Eternity
Also, what's the
is
studio?
like-
They changed the studio. I forgot which one it
Yeah,
is now.
Yeah, they
changed
did.
the studio, which is another reason why I don't think that this is.
What is
it's
it?
Drive.
Drive?
I don't know
What
what
the fuck
this
is that?
they're doing Uzumaki Konosuba 3. Wait, when was
What?
this announced?
What?
What?
I remember they announced.
Wait,
the whole,
what?
like, project for Konosuba. I didn't realize it was 3.
Oh.
What happened to What happened to Dean?
What the fuck? I
You know,
completely. What?
Dean's a little preoccupied right now. They've
This
got
is actually the first I'm learning of that. What the fuck? I had
That's
no
crazy.
idea.
Oh no, that's
Hey,
what
Lensa?
am I thinking? No, Dean.
Learn something new every podcast, you know.
Yeah, I know, right? What the hell?
Money.
But yeah, so Two Year Eternity is like,
runtime.
Two Year Eternity is one of those shows that like I think the
Yeah,
premise
it was 20
quite-
episodes last season too.
Yeah, it
Bobby.
was. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think it was quite like as a premise. I think it's really interesting, and that's like what
sure.
got me watching it in the first place. Was like this is just a very interesting concept. Execution wise, definitely fell flat in some regards.
It had a good
but-
start. It had a very strong
yeah,
start.
It did. It did have a strong start. But it's like one of those shows that like, even though it didn't end up super great, I don't think it's gonna be that big of a chore to watch week to week. So I mean, I'm gonna watch it, but I just
Think
don't
about,
know
like-
what to think about, especially given the circumstances with the new studio and everything. I just don't have super high expectations. But
The thing about 2 Year Eternity for me is that like the problems I had with like the first season are not the types of problems that can be rectified just by adding a sequel.
yeah,
you know?
I agree.
I think like to me like the damage is like done. Like if this season ends up like being like better than the first season, I'm still gonna like not really be too high on the first season. It's like one of those weird situations where like I want this one to like be better, but like at the same time like the series itself has kind of like lost me in that regard. Because like I remember like when we were watching the first episodes of the season that 2 Year Eternity aired, like I thought that it was the best first episode. I'm like,
Yeah,
dude, the series is gonna be
amazing
crazy. And
first
then, like,
episode.
and then by like episode 6 or so, I like started falling off. I'm like, okay, I don't really like what they're doing or how it's like handling its storytelling. Let's see if it fixes itself. It didn't, and so now I'm just left in like, okay, it's getting more. I guess I'll watch it. You know?
Yeah, it almost feels like it would be better as a retelling instead of a sequel. But unfortunately, obviously, you know, with the studio changing everything, that is not gonna be. I just don't know. It could be a dumpster fire.
But the thing is, because the answer is I don't know, I'm looking forward to seeing it and just kind of seeing like what the fuck it's gonna be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that at all. I just don't. I have no idea what to expect from this follow up. In any regard, like I just don't know. I don't know what the
Had a
fuck's
mixed
gonna happen.
experience. Now your expectations are
I
mixed.
think the show had like a pretty okay grasp on like a casual audience though. Like the people who like work hard enough to find this show, but then without like
Yeah, it ended up pretty popular in general. I think.
yeah.
Like it actually like did pretty well.
But that's because a lot of people like look. A lot of people
they
don't look past
really-
premise, and the
yeah,
premise is
exactly.
undoubtedly a strong one.
Yes, the
So it's like-
premise is intriguing, and that alone will get people, you know, sucked into it the entire time. Unfortunately, we're quote unquote elitists, and so we actually think about the things that we watch, and so sometimes it takes a little bit more to it be like that. But yeah, I can't. I'm still wrapping my head around that Konosuba 3 shit. Like, what? I didn't even know. I had no idea. How did I not see an article? Or
Why is the studio like just like picking up like random ass sequels?
I don't know. I don't know.
It's the Megumin one, right?
Yeah, there's like some Megumin spin-off that's like also just got announced or something.
I'm
Really?
pretty sure Drive is also doing
Yeah.
that.
Oh, this thing. Okay.
Go back.
It's its own series.
Yeah.
An
Yeah, it's
explosion on this
explosion.
beautiful world.
It's a spin-off prequel.
Ah.
Okay,
That's weird.
well,
So wait,
There you
is season 3 the spinoff, or is it?
No.
if anything,
Oh, okay.
then I knew
No,
about
that-
it.
These are two separate things. Okay.
Oh, and adaptation. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I
Damn,
was like,
Konosuba is so huge. They got two things filling out the front and the back end of the
Right.
timeline right now.
What a world. What a world.
Video
Alright,
game
but-
being like Rip Bozo.
We gotta wrap this up because I do have something coming up. But I think this was a fun episode. There's
Yeah.
a lot of weird shit when it comes to
So, like when I was like thinking about like this like topic, like I was thinking like, okay, we're just gonna talk about like what we think makes a sequel good, but there was a lot to talk about, honestly.
Yeah.
Like this is like not like a linear topic, you know.
Yeah, for sure. So just want to say once again, all of you guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and subscribe to our YouTube if you have not already. We will try to resume our regular schedule of every 2 weeks. Hopefully we don't go a super long time without an episode again. But if we have to make some adjustments to the schedule, we'll be sure to let you guys know. We hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and that is it from us. Until next time, friends. Goodbye.
Peace.
All right,
Peace.
later.